and that's fine.
Okay. Before we get to that, are you prepared to talk about it tonight?
Yeah, it's super quick. It would be better as an email, but.
All right, well, it is on the agenda. Let's keep it on the agenda, and we'll move that to new business. So that'll be item 8D. All right. Is everybody okay with approval of the minutes on the consent agenda? Great. Okay. We have a motion to approve the agenda, moved by Reg, seconded by Ashley. Are we ready for the vote? All right. Let's see. We'll say Ashley.
Yes.
Eric. Karen.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Reg.
Yes.
Colin.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
And Sky.
Yes.
Okay. So that's 900. The agenda is approved. Thank you, everybody. The Columbia update. Sean?
All right. We have a few short videos to go over. All right, our first video is Adopt a Family. Ahead of the holidays last month, the senior leadership team, along with groups of team members from community programs and services and community operations departments, participated in the Adopt a Family holiday gift drive through the Community Action Council of Howard County. These gifts helped 5 local families, including more than 20 children this holiday season. Community Engagement Manager Robin Stimpson and Dan Burns both helped distribute presents to these deserving families.
Today is our Adopt a Student Distribution Day. Students from across the county will be coming to St. John Baptist Church here in Columbia to take home gifts for their family for the holidays. These gifts have been donated by the Columbia Association and a few of our other sponsors and supporters. The Columbia Association is always a valuable asset to the Community Action Council, whether it's a campaign to bring in coats or Christmas gifts, or just ensure that our entire community is aware of our services. The Community Action Council is only able to fulfill its mission to eradicate poverty because of the individuals across the community who advocate for us. And I hope the Columbia Association and the Community Action Council will continue to partner to ensure that Columbia and all of Howard County continues to be a thriving community.
All right, our next video is on Festive Fridays. Once again, CA partnered with Downtown Columbia Partnership to bring Festive Fridays to the lakefront. Our community operations team put up 5 miles of lights in preparation for this family favorite. Hundreds of attendees enjoyed everything from fire pits and s'mores to a slapshot competition hosted by the Rink and a reindeer story time presented by our Kids Space team and much more. This is a great example of how we were working to activate this space at all times of the year, and people that attended can testify to that. It was cold for a few of those nights, but still well attended. All right, now this next video may not go over too well for some people, but we have already experienced 2 significant snow events this month, and it takes an incredible effort across the entire organization to keep the community safe. This requires prep leading up to these storms, overnight hours clearing the snow and snowing ice in real time, and follow-up afterwards. Between the golf maintenance and open space teams, we committed about 120 hours to clearing pathways, sidewalks, and parking lots over these 2 events. A massive thank you to those teams, and for all their hard work and dedication. And a reminder that you still might see some lingering ice out there on the pathways because rock salt only works about 20 degrees and up. So thanks for your patience, and really kudos to the operations and golf teams for clearing all these areas in such a short time frame. And hopefully we won't have to look at this again for the rest of the winter.
I kind of like the snow.
just a quick note, I'm sorry to interrupt. Drew, are you aware of the audio problem we're having?
I've been coming to the,
Yes, we
Okay.
fixed the YouTube.
We're all good? Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
No?
Please continue. I apologize.
Last is our
Columbia
longtime
Association
member
facilities
series.
since
As
the
we
fall.
continue to get our members used to the upgrades to the new CA app, we realize that we have a number of members who have been with CA for decades and seen a lot of change. We're starting to speak with some of these incredible members and feature them on our communications channels. This includes people like Brad Stearns, who has been a member since 1996. Brad is one of the founders of the Red Shirt Club at Supreme, a group that meets up once a week to work out and enjoy each other's company. This is a great example of the intersection between physical and social wellness and how our facilities provide space for all sorts of community within Columbia.
fall of 1996. It was the ubiquity, walking through using the trails, seeing all of the pools everywhere, the basketball courts. There's no place like Columbia as far as the friendliness of the people, the family orientation, the diversity of the people, sort of the welcoming, accepting nature of just the population here, and everybody can find a place, in Columbia. And all of the Columbia Association facilities reflect and mirror, that kind of community vibe.
That's it.
That's all? All right. Thank you very much, Sean. Those were great. I especially liked the snow removal. That was cool. All right. We're moving now on to resident speak out. We have 5 members who would like to speak out tonight. Once again, individuals will be allotted 3 minutes of time, and groups will be allotted 5 minutes. Because our good friend from Town Center is remote tonight, I'm going to actually keep time on my phone here. So we'll get started. Thank you all for attending and participating. Would you be able, Mike? Mike's graciously going to keep time for us, so please let us know. Are we ready? Tell me when we're ready. All right. First up will be Kevin Day, and then Beverly White Seals will follow Kevin. My understanding is Kevin is virtual. Kevin? Okay. All right, then we will go on to Ms. Beverly White Seals, who will be speaking for a group. Beverly? She was up there.
I'm not sure.
A little louder?
Hello?
Hi, Beverly.
Hello, how are you?
Good, good. Thank you for your time that you're going to, your resident speak out tonight. Are we ready, Mike? All right, Beverly, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Yes, my name is Beverly White Seals, and I'm president and CEO of the Community Foundation of Howard County. I've lived in Long Reach, Town Center, Clemens Crossing, and since 1985 in Hobbits Glen. My husband and I moved here in 1979. I worked for the Rouse Company in their legal division for 20 years. The Community Foundation was founded by James Rouse in 1969. In 1989, CA's then president, Pat Kennedy, entered into an agreement with the foundation to transfer CA's process for providing grants to local nonprofits to the Community Foundation. A program agreement Pat Kennedy signed in 1995 stated as follows: CA grants to specific nonprofit organizations and programs are beneficial, and that they are prudently and thoughtfully administered by the nonprofit organizations so that Columbia Association funds significantly contribute to the physical, intellectual, emotional, and social growth and the pleasure of individuals in the community. CA grants through the foundation have been approximately $5 million over this 36-year history. funds have helped launch new organizations and programs and have strengthened existing ones. In 2016, CA and the foundation signed an updated agreement, which resulted in a member of CA's management team serving on the Community Foundation's Grants Committee so CA would fully understand how it worked. All grants to nonprofits using CA funds all grantees are advised that grants come from CA, and they are advised to send a thank you letter to CA. The other half of the grants that we give out each year come from the Community Foundation. We prepare a report to CA each year, and recipients that tells what recipients were for each year. In 2017, CA began compensating the foundation, also a local nonprofit, and an administrative fee for the services we provide of around 10% of the grant amount given by CA. CA funding initially stopped because of disruptions caused by COVID, although local nonprofits needed more money during that period. So the foundation went into its endowment to try and make up some of that difference. We've done that for a few years, but that is not sustainable. This partnership is really important to local nonprofits. Fewer grant dollars mean fewer services for Columbia residents, especially those in need.
Beverly, just a heads up, you've been speaking for 4 minutes and you have 1 minute left.
Yes, well, with my extra minute, I would like to say that over the past 6 months, I've been giving presentations around the county about the origins of Columbia, James Rouse, his vision, and Columbia needs services and excellent reputation. I really think it would be beneficial for all members of the CA board to hear this presentation. I've given it to close to 400 people, and I have around 6 other presentations already booked. It would really enhance your understanding of how special our community is and its founding principles.
All right, Beverly, if you could just wrap it up, please.
I just wrapped it up.
You did a great job. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the board? Mike?
Beverly, how can we get that presentation? Can we contact you and you can send it to us, or?
It's not something I send, but I can certainly give a presentation to CA board and maybe staff. The presentation itself lasts close to an hour, but I have found that I spend almost as much time answering questions and hearing comments from people in attendance. Sky has seen it. I'm not sure if any other board members have.
All right. Okay. Eric?
So your organization is the Community Foundation of Howard County.
Yes.
The question I have is, how much money do you get from the county? How much money does the county contribute to the organization?
Nothing. Zero.
So have you tried to get money from the county? Have you?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And
the county will give money to direct service providers. We don't directly provide services. We give money to the nonprofits that provide services.
All right. All right, just, Beverly, I have a question from Reg Avery.
Good evening,
Yes.
Good evening, Beverly. Just a quick question. If Howard County doesn't provide you funds and you have not been receiving funds from us, what other venue are you receiving funds from?
Local residents.
Okay.
There are some of the most giving residents in our community are actually many of the residents of the villages of Columbia. We also get residents from, much larger donors too. But getting financial support from CA and we wish from the county would certainly help benefit residents of Columbia.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anything else? All right, Beverly, thank you. Thank you for your participation tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up will be Joel Horwitz, who is virtual, and Kat Wee, who is also virtual. Joel?
Let me get my TV off for you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Joel, you have 3 minutes. Thank you for participating tonight.
Good evening, Joel Hurwitz, living Harper's Choice, speaking for myself. I guess you haven't approved your new strategic plan, so the old one says you're supposed to advocate for Newtown. I've been to 2 Gateway meetings this week. If any of the board members or senior staff were there, I didn't see you. When are you going to participate? The county keeps talking about governance, and I'm the only one asking, should it become a CA village? They gave a wishy-washy non-answer. Long Reach. When are you going to participate with Long Reach? You weren't at the planning board meeting on the redevelopment. You weren't at the council meeting. I told the council that. I testified against the plan. I told it was a concept of a plan because CA has spent millions of dollars, as you're going to discuss tonight, on Stonehouse renovations that they want to tear down. You, as I told the council, have an FY29 appropriation in your packet this week. You talk about construction for the elevators in your packet this week, but you weren't participating with the Long Reach redevelopment. What is your participation? When I asked Jeremy Sharpenberg a few months ago, he said that there had been no formal discussions with the developer. The developer says they can proceed without the CA's parcels, and Howard Hughes, which also didn't provide letters of support. I told the council that's not a plan, and it's a concept of a plan because there are too many unknowns with all these unparticipating owners that the developer said that they hope to cooperate with after they get it approved by the council. Seems backwards. So I'd like when it's going to be on the agenda. When is Gateway, other than your presentation from the county staff, going to be on the agenda? Regarding last month's meeting where Bill did his homage to Ferris Bueller and asking if I was there, I was watching on YouTube because I didn't receive a Zoom link. At 6:50, I wrote to resident.speakout. At 7:01, I wrote to the Columbia Communications at columbiaassociation.org. I received an automated reply that said it's not monitored all the time and I should write to the customer care. Well, I know customer care is certainly not monitored during the meeting. As of this date, I have yet to receive any response to any of those emails.
Joel, you've got 30 seconds.
It's unacceptable that the communications doesn't monitor the communications account during the meeting, especially when the email says if I have any questions to write them. So that's got to be fixed, Sean. Lastly, as I've said previously regarding grants, the foundation should be getting donations for the benefit of CA as a 401c3 to a 401c4, not the other way around. And it should be encouraged to get legacy gifts to the foundation to support CA in that respect.
All right, Joel, that's time. If you could just finish your thought, please.
That's it. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Joel this evening? Eric Greenberg has a question for you, Joel.
Joel, could you elaborate on your last point when you say that which direction were you implying the donation should go between CA and the Community Foundation?
As I've said for a number of years before, other organizations from Reston to all the other large organizations in Columbia, and I talked to Beverly White Seals about this a few years ago, have foundations that are supporting the library and the college and the hospital that donate, and the school system through Bright Minds, that donate when the county funds aren't sufficient. Instead, you want the county to provide it. You want CA, which is a quasi-governmental body, to support the 501c3s, rather than having large grants cover your needs of downtown or the neighborhood centers when that was being discussed a number of years ago. Just one person giving $100,000 a year would fill all your budget holes every time you talk about things that where you're going to get $200,000 from, as Karen wants to take out money and other people on the board said, where are you going to get the money? Well, why don't you ask for some of these people who are in their 80s and 90s to donate some of their money after they've lived in Columbia for the last 50 plus years?
All right. Thank you, Joel. Anybody else? All right, Joel, thanks for chiming in tonight. We appreciate your comments. Thank you very much. Next up will be Kat Wee, and then Kevin Bruning will be our last. Kat?
Hello, it's Kat Wee. I live in Wild Lake, and right now on the odd side of Whetstone Road, Bill's come down there once when he crashed my block party that I organized, but he didn't actually talk to residents long enough to know that the people on the odd numbers, their backyards are slowly eroding. There is a big ditch now behind their houses, and that borders the Fairway Hills Golf Club. And when the water start rushing down, because it's a nice hill, at this point there are trees that are kind of sideways. Parts of their, what used to be their backyards, they used to be able to walk straight across. They no longer can do that. There's a big, ditch now at some points 10 to 12 feet deep. And so I emailed this to Open Space, no response whatsoever. No one's ever come by to look at it. Some of the neighbors had the master gardeners come by to look at it, and they said, oh, wow, this is way too big for us. You need to contact CA. So here we are. Since no one's ever come to look at it, I'm contacting CA in this fashion, since the email doesn't work, to tell them who's going to take responsibility when chunks of people's backyards fall into this chasm. Or are they not, and is it going to become the homeowner's responsibility to deal with that when that happens? It's slowly edging over. And that's the end of my testimony.
All right, thank you, Kat. Do we have any questions from the board? All right, thanks for giving us the heads up on that. Kevin?
Good evening, everybody. So I brought my computer with me, if that's okay. Some of you might already know me. Good evening, Mr. Chair and the Board of Directors. I'm Kevin Bruning, and it was great to see everyone at the CA stakeholders meeting last week. I decided more or less as a last-minute thing to attend this evening and to make a presentation on the budget and where the villages stand and some of the concerns that the villages have. I am speaking on behalf of myself this evening, so consider my comments my own and not as a representative of the River Hill Community Association. I want to thank everyone for your commitment and your time and effort to make Columbia better. I think a lot of times it's not appreciated, the time and the effort that all of you put into that. And I know it's a huge commitment of your time and the work that you put into making Columbia better. I think that the village-CA relationship is a win-win relationship where the villages operate as an extension of the CA mission, with the villages adding a local component to the services and programming provided, and gives something specific that would be relative to their communities as an opportunity to have programming and services provided to them. I did want to go back to, so in terms of funding, so we're in the process of the budget, and we're looking at funding for the villages going forward. And I just wanted to make one note to everyone that the villages, going back to 2019, if we can just step back for a few minutes, the CA actual amounts provided to the villages was 7.9% of the CA annual charge. However, the budgeted amount was 8.3%. So the villages received 3.22 million, where the budgeted amount was actually 3.33 million. Historically, going back to 2019, every year except for one, the villages received less than the budgeted amount in every year. So what was budgeted, we actually received less as villages in terms of the actual amount that we actually received. So, for instance, just going through the numbers, it was 7.9% in 2019, 7.8% in fiscal year 2020.
Kevin, you've got 30 seconds.
7.8% in fiscal year 2021, 8% in fiscal year 2022. In 23, it was 6.6%, and in 24, 6.9%, and 25 is estimated to be 7.4%. So what I guess I'm saying is that the villages have taken cuts, maybe not directly or intended, but the villages are seeing, in effect, reductions year to year. And I would just ask that the board consider restoring that funding as we go forward.
All right. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Karen?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin, for coming by. I have a quick question. So when the villages didn't receive the full budgeted amount, was it communicated that you weren't going to receive the full budgeted amount, or was it just you just didn't? How did that work? Did every village get a cut?
I think a lot of that has to do with, in some cases, some villages return funding to CA. I think the level of communications that the villages received as to that is one where I think it's an end of year function, but in general, I think it plays out with the fact that there's a cap that's put in place in terms of what the villages can keep on a year-to-year basis. And as a result of that, villages send back money.
Okay. All right. Sky, you had a question?
Yeah. Could I have a copy of those years and the numbers?
Sure thing. I'd be happy to send that out to everyone.
Eric has a question.
Yeah, so one of the issues I have trying to understand it all is we have if you look at the budget, the annual charge share, and that includes staff benefits. It also takes into account the money that basically gets returned when villages exceed the cap. So this is just a general request. Could we basically get a report over the last 5 years of what the actual annual charge share was without the cap, and then what the amount return was for each year, so we can have sort of a baseline to work from?
Yeah. Eric, if you could just follow up on the board request form for that, then we'll be able to formalize it.
Yep.
Thanks. Any other questions? All right, Kevin, thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you so much. Appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
All right, everybody. And with that, that concludes the resident speak out section of our meeting. If we can just have a few-minute recess, we'll come back at 7:45 and allow staff to rearrange our meeting area for the balance of our meeting. So we are in recess for 5 minutes. looks ready. All right. All right. All right, we're back from our recess now. Next on the agenda, consent agenda. Based on our revised agenda, the only thing on the agenda is draft minutes from December 12th, 2024. So any objection to the consent agenda? The consent agenda is approved. Yay. All right, on to old business. First item up is the strategic plan. Sean?
Yes, I can speak to that. So Judell Campbell, our community planner, is here, and you've seen Judell's presentations the last month. What we did after the last presentation to the board was the board seemed amicable to the new plan and basically around the framework. So what Judell has done with the help of the SLT is to draft a written strategic plan to go along with that framework. We've updated the mission and vision as per the board's request, also established the 4 strategic focus areas of community connection, wellness, environmental sustainability, and resource resilience. We described the components underneath those that you'll see in the plan, and also elaborated on the areas of emphasis that are kind of core to all that CA does. And then talked about annually each board is able to use the new strategic plan to assess these strategic focus areas, components, and areas of emphasis to develop plans for the following year or 2 or 3. But it gives a lot of flexibility to the board. So what this document does is to really just elaborate, to provide a little more direction, but with the goal of leaving a lot for the interpretation of the board on these elements, so that each board can take ownership of the goals that they're setting on the annual basis. So with that, we've sent that out to the board, but we're here to answer any questions. But ultimately, the board needs to make a decision and vote on it. And as discussed over the summer when we established the goal, we've presented a strategic plan to be approved in January, as discussed.
All right, so the intent is to vote on this at the end. Judell, I guess, do you have any further comments on the plan?
I don't want to waste your time. I'm here for your feedback, and we've got 30 minutes. So thank you all for your time. Looking forward to hearing your feedback.
Okay, I think I saw Skye's hand up first.
Yeah, this is maybe a dumb question, but is this, and I realize it's probably not set in stone because the previous one was not, is this kind of like a 5-year plan, or until we make another strategic plan, which could be 10 years or 2 years?
The boards, historically, the board makes rewrites the strategic plan or develops a new strategic plan every 5 years. So now if a board wants to make that shorter or longer, a board can do that, but this is the plan until this would be the plan until the next strategic plan timeline, which would now be 4 years.
All right.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, all right. If Karen, could
You need to make a motion so that
I was just going to say that. I was going to ask for the.
I will move that we approve the strategic plan.
Okay, so Karen has moved and Reg has seconded.
And then I have questions.
Approve strategic plan. All right, very good. Karen.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think that the strategic plan is a good framework, but the things that are missing is I don't see what Columbia is going to be in 5 years. I don't see any kind of thing that says, here's where we are and here's where we're going to be. And the other thing I don't see in this is I don't see any kinds of metrics of how we're achieving that. No proposed metrics at all about what we're going to do. So if I'm just approving a framework, I'm good with it. But I want to see some kind of vision statement in here and I want to see something, with something really, that's well thought out as to what we think the Columbia Association should be in the next 5 years.
Okay.
I can.
Thanks. John, if you want to.
So a little bit of that, yes. So we agree with that. The purpose of this document is really to be a guide for each board annually. So this is why we focus, you've heard me mention this many times, the goals and objectives. So annually boards set the goals, like we did this year. Those goals all have specific metrics that are assigned with them. Over the course of the 4 years, we look back and say, all right, each board assess these goals. Where are we? Where do we want to be? Now, the mission and vision is broad, but what our mission is, what the vision is, where we want to be. And I go back to this interpretation by the board annually. What do we want that to be? So this board looks at it and says, this is what we want it to be in 5 years. The next board next year looks at it and says, this is what we want it to be the next 4 years. So it was intentional to provide this, not to have objectives or metrics embedded in here or specific goals, but to me allowed the board to establish those on an annual basis.
Okay, when did, I have a follow-up then. So Sean, when do you think the board is going to approve those? When do you want the board to approve goals? I mean, you're kind of working on goals now, and is there a plan to take what you've got, what we approved earlier, and show us how it aligns to what we've got in this framework so that the board kind of understands?
Correct.
Okay.
So as we present the goals, we had that in Judel's presentation previously. We tried to show, well, your current goals, this is how they align with this proposed framework. Now, moving forward, as we go into the new fiscal year, we'll establish new goals for the year for the board. And they'll reflect this strategic plan, and they'll also discuss the metrics that'll go along with those goals that align with the strategic plan.
Then the only thing I think is missing is just some sort of vision for where the Columbia Association should be in the next 5 years.
Okay. All right. Ashley.
Part of the conversation we had about this before, I completely agree. Like, metrics are my preference, right, whenever I'm looking, especially at long-term plans. But they did specifically outline, it's page 63 of our packet or page 14 of the draft plan, where it talks about establishing annual organizational goals and objectives and going through and using the strategic plan for it. I would be interested if there are lofty goals for us to set, that are 5 years from now, where that would fit within the framework for the board, because I know that we set annual goals, and then obviously some of them will take certain, number of years to accomplish. But I agreed to Karen's point, like trying to figure out where we're going to be in the future. Sometimes that needs to be removed from the annual goals and more of looking at the picture of where CA wants to be as an organization. But I do appreciate that each board will have the ability to weigh in on it, whereas not every board is going to touch the strategic plan.
All right. Eric.
Yeah, so again, I see a strategic plan as something that should be a forward-looking document, something that's sort of a plan for the future. The question I have reading through this plan is, what aren't we doing today that the strategic plan calls for? Because I can't really find too many examples that, the strategic plan says we should be doing this, but that we're not doing today. So what are we not doing today that the strategic plan is nudging us towards?
I can give you one example. Mental wellness is something that we haven't focused on completely. We've done some things around that, and wellness is a big part of this strategic plan, and I think that's something that CA needs to focus on moving forward.
Oh, and we do have the walk with the doc. We've got some other programs in the
There's
gyms.
things that are done, but we have not made a concerted effort to really address mental well-being.
Okay. Sky.
Yeah, I wonder if it's possibly just a matter of semantics, and that maybe some of us would prefer a term other than strategic plan because it doesn't include metrics. So I guess I'm not seeing this as something bounded, but seeing as something that has fuzzy boundaries. And so it's easier for me to accept it as it is as a guide.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Mike.
I'll just say that, I hear what everyone's saying, and in a lot of different ways, in different circumstances, I would agree with Sky and Karen and everyone else is saying of, it doesn't paint a picture really of where we're going to be and the metrics that's going to drive us there. But I think given the nature of the board of directors and our turnover and the way the governance of CA works, that developing that kind of long-term plan is not really practical, right? Because we can't force a board 3 years from now to follow through on anything that we say today. But by laying out a framework, we're providing guidance to the staff of like, hey, until you hear otherwise, here are the things we care about and the direction we generally want you to be moving without having to hear from us on a daily basis. So I think that's probably the the way we should perceive this, right? I agree that all those things are missing, but I just don't think it's practical to do that over a 5-year term, given the nature of our board. I have a different comment, but I'll hold off on that if people want to discuss this issue more.
Okay, well, we'll go around. Anybody else? Colin, do you have any input here?
I do not. I'm processing, but I by and large agree.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
I think I might be in the minority on this, so like I don't want to belabor this. But when I appreciate all the work that went into this. When I read the way it's written now, the tone it strikes me with, it already seems a bit stale to me, a bit dated, that we're using a lot of jargon and terminology that, you know, isn't accessible to a lot of people. And it was probably popular in 2020, but it's using a lot of jargon and terminology that it's not going to be the way people talk in 2030. And so it feels anachronistic to me already. And I just worry as far as a 5-year plan, that maybe we should, my preference would be to take a look at some of the language we're using and try to take a more neutral, pragmatic, practical tone.
Karen.
Michael, can you provide some examples?
Yeah, I think if you read through it, there's a lot of things that are talking about subjective experience and using jargon that's just esoteric to ways certain people talk, but not really a broader community, right? Like terms like creating space for dialogue or holistic, or like that is very esoteric language to a very specific group of people, and it makes reading the document, I think, inaccessible to the broader community. So those are some examples. Okay. And I think I don't want to focus on what's necessarily wrong with it, right? I think it should be more accessible to laymen and talking about things in more practical, pragmatic terms.
Reg.
So I don't think you're in the minority. I think actually I kind of support what you're saying, because I too started looking at this and the document, and the language just reminds me of someone writing a military document. It just kind of reads like that. It's kind of stale and kind of, it doesn't really inspire me to do anything. But it's a great plan. It's a great overall plan. It's just I guess I want to say it just needs a little. Some of the terms and languages it's going to be dated by the time 2025 is ended. Some of this language is going to be pretty dated. But it's hard to come up with language that's going to please everyone. But I have to agree with Mike.
Eric.
So I actually agree with both Mike and Reg on this.
Oh my goodness, the end of the world. No, I'm sorry.
Hey. I'm agreeable. And the more I think about it, the more listening to Mike and Reg discuss the text, I think the issue is not so much how it's written, but the fact that it's written very, very generically, very without specifics. So you're reading it and you get all these generic terms, generalizations, and it's very difficult to see, okay, when we execute this plan, what does that mean? What's the outcome? How is Columbia going to be different in 5 years after this is executed? Because this is just so generic and so general that, well, it could be anything. I mean, almost what we're doing today could almost fit right into the strategic plan. So it's very difficult to going through all the text and put, I think someone's mentioned the word jargon. It's very difficult to parse that and say, okay, what are the specific things that's going to happen 5 years from now? And that's, for me, that's why I need to say in a strategic plan is what is Columbia going to look like in 5 years? How do we evaluate that we met that goal or not? And it's hard for me to see that in this language.
All right, do we have any other discussion on this topic?
You do.
Sure. Oh, Colin, yes.
Yeah. So the thing that's two thoughts. I think perfect is the enemy of good, and I don't think that we're going to hit perfection with this, and that's okay. And my understanding is that that's more than okay because that gives opportunity for boards year after year to come in and make their mark on this document, which I think we should want to support, or at least that's my understanding. To one of Sky's point, though, is that I'm just wondering if we reframe this from calling this document the strategic plan to calling it the strategic framework, if folks then feel differently about this document.
Okay. Sky?
People are questioning the verbiage and the word usage, and it's too general and boring. It's certainly possible to get a good editor in next year to rewrite this and use colloquial language and maybe some examples. I would also like to see, instead of 9 pages, like a 1-page outline, so I wouldn't have to go through and figure out, the headings. Oh yeah, this is the 4th focused area and blah, blah, blah. So I'd like to see an executive summary, a 1-pager or something. Thank you.
Karen?
Yeah, I think that, I apologize, Sky, that sounds like kicking the can down the road. We need to finish the strategic plan. It's been sitting out here for a while. I think Judelle and everyone and Sean have worked really hard. They've interviewed all of us. I do like Colin's idea about calling it a framework, but I also think that, again, I'll reiterate it because it sounds like that's what everybody kind of said, is that we don't really know where we want to be in 5 years. We don't have any idea. It's not reflected here. Sean has goals that we set, as an incoming CEO, but we don't actually know where we want to be in 5 years. That is a glaring miss here, and I don't know how you establish annual organizational goals and objectives, whatever language you're using, if you don't know where you're going.
Okay. Anyone else? I'll piggyback on that, and I'll say that, we're rolling up on 2 years without a strategic plan. We've been wandering in the woods for a while. And if this goes down, then another board will have to try and take a third shot at this. We've done this through consultants. We've done this internally. We've interviewed the board and staff repeatedly, and this is 18 months worth of product. If we don't know where we're going and we have a plan that says we have 5 opportunities to write where we should go, I think that's a heck of a start, given that we've gone almost 2 years without any vision or clarity at all. Eric?
Well, it's not like we've gone without a strategic plan. We still have the prior strategic plan. So I basically, even though that expired in 5 years, we're still essentially operating off of the prior strategic plan. So the question I have is, and given that the organization's basically done okay on the prior strategic plan, is there any reason why not to just keep the prior strategic plan and keep going with it? And would that make sense?
That goes a little far away from the motion that's on the table, but
I'm just...
Can I make a recommendation?
Karen?
Maybe it would be good for the board to sit and come up with where we want to be in 5 years. Maybe we need to have a work session specifically. Let's take this and let's work out what we want this organization to be in the next 5 years between us and Sean, some of the senior leadership team, and get it nailed down.
Eric?
So I moved to table the strategic plan with the assumption that we'll come up with a work session to discuss where do we want to be in 5 years.
Okay, I need a date for our table.
a date for the table?
We will table until
we come up with table it to holding a work session. I'm not sure when we can hold the work session, but tabling until we hold a work session where we discuss our goals for the next 5 years.
Okay. Within the next 12 weeks?
That would be ideal.
Right, that's
That'd be
what
ideal.
I'm talking about. All right. Eric has made a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Karen seconds. There's a motion to table the motion to approve the strategic plan. Colin?
Are we having a discussion, or are we just?
Tabling is not a discussable motion.
Can you make sure you add that it's dependent on a work session? We're tabling it.
Yeah, tabling to the work session.
Contingent on work session.
We don't have one. We have to.
All right, Colin, I'll come back to you.
Can you read the motion? What's the motion?
The motion's to table.
Motion's to table the motion to approve the strategic plan contingent on a work session and a subsequent meeting within the next 12 weeks.
No.
Do you want me to come back to you?
No, I mean, my vote is no.
Oh, your vote is no. Thank you for your vote. All right. Eric?
Yes.
Mike?
No.
Karen?
Yes.
Reg?
No.
Paul?
No.
Sky?
No.
Ashley?
No.
No, and I vote no, so that is 2 for, 7 against, 0 abstentions. Motion to table fails. All right. We come back to the main motion. We still have, looks like 15 minutes. Is there any further discussion on the main motion?
I don't really have a sense of how widespread my view on it is. So, like, I'll just throw out that if a majority of people agree with me, and it sounds like maybe 2 do, but I'm not really sure that Eric was really on the same page as me, that my recommendation would just be to table this until it's rewritten, as Sky maybe put it, in like a more colloquial term. But I don't really know if other people really do support that or not.
All right. Ashley, I just need a clarification when I'm coming to you, okay? Are you making a motion to table, or are you recommending a motion to table?
I guess I'm just asking for like a general sense of where everyone else is.
All right. Ashley?
Yeah, as we've repeatedly mentioned, the staff has spent a ton of time investing in this, plus we've had the consultants. I think what matters most is that the staff finds it as a document that can help guide them, and then what we care about most is that we are able to set goals that are future-oriented, and I think we can still do that while also approving this framework. I like calling it that, right? Because a lot of us are hung up on missing the metrics of it. And then we can still find an opportunity to place long-term goals as part of our goal planning that we have happen.
Okay. Anyone else? I'm sorry, Colin, yes.
Plus 100 to everything that Ashley just said. So I would like to move to amend the naming of this document to the FY25 Board Draft CA Strategic Framework.
Second it.
Point of order? If we rename this the strategic framework, then we still don't have a strategic plan. So then we still need to come up with a strategic plan. Because a framework is not a plan. A plan is a plan, a framework is framework.
All right.
So if we make this a framework, we still don't have a plan.
True. We could also make all references in the rest of our document universe to the strategic framework versus the strategic plan.
So when will we come up with a strategic plan if we're approving this as a framework, is my question.
Okay. I don't have an answer for that.
I do.
Oh, Sky.
Do we have to have a plan? Is it written somewhere that we need a strategic plan?
Do we need a strategic framework?
What did you say? I'm sorry.
Do we need a strategic framework?
John, I'm going to ask you if you have an idea on this.
So I understand what the board's saying. We tried to, to start this process, we went through with the board. The board was not happy with the strategic plan in place. We'll go through all this, but the interviews were great. They were very enlightening. The board had great input individually. The input individually was that the board wanted kind of more of an umbrella and more of a framework. That was the discussion we had with you. This is why we presented this. And we thought, and it goes back to this flexibility and allowing each board to take ownership of it. I think, and the board agrees on this framework that's presented as a strategic plan, and I think that's a good guide for the staff to move forward with. Now, so I'm happy to hear that the board is in agreement with the framework, which is great. Now, with the wording, that just gets a little complicated. I understand what you're saying, and we could go back and forth for a year just on wording to try to kind of craft it to the way that each board likes it. Each board member would want to put their own kind of spin on it a little bit. My recommendation would be if for the board to adopt this, because I think it fits what the board has been asking for. Is it perfect for 10 board members to look at and say, yes, it's perfect for me? No, I don't think that's ever going to happen. My recommendation would be accept the strategic plan as presented, and a goal for next year could be, we want to modify the strategic plan. We don't like the wording. Let's make this a goal for us to work on for the year. Or we want to figure out a way to get more metrics into this current strategic plan. I mean, it's not set in stone for the next 5 years. It certainly is a document that can be modified and updated. So I wouldn't look at it like, okay, this is it for the next 5 years. We're set. This is a great framework plan. It's got great information. It really speaks to what we do here at CA and what we want to do. And then every year, the board has the opportunity to kind of decide, okay, this year is different. Maybe we have another COVID. Well, this strategic plan provides flexibility to kind of set goals around that. So I would, as the board member, I would look at it kind of in that framework, not to overdo it, and then just say, okay, that's good enough to move forward. It encapsulates everything that we would like in a strategic plan. It does not have everything the way we want it individually, but that would be my recommendation.
Right. Okay. And just to the point of strategic plan versus strategic framework, we have a lot of documents out there that reference the strategic plan. Our board governing documents make mention of strategic plans. Strategic plan shows up in the aquatics master plan, the pedestrian bicycle master plan. Some of the charters for the committees, I think, also have language about the strategic plan. So it does exist in other places that it points to a strategic plan. So going from plan to framework, we either change all those documents to reflect framework, or we do have a little bit of a conundrum if we change the name. So just a heads up on that. But thank you for your comments, Sean. Very, very well said. Anything else? Paul?
Are we allowed to add anything under the focus area components? Right now, I'm impartial to the higher level discussions about whether there's a vision or not included. I think it's a great draft, and it's something rather than having nothing, continue to have nothing. But I didn't know if we're allowed to add anything to the focus area components at this time, or make a motion to.
Well, you can make an motion to amend.
Amend it, okay.
I have a motion to amend on the table already.
I was just wondering at this point, because this is something different than the higher level,
If we can take care of that, then I will come back to you and ask a question if you don't mind. Colin?
So what I just heard, Bill, was that what I heard from Sky was that perhaps we don't need, the semantics of this are just super fun. That do we quote unquote need a plan versus a framework? What I just heard you say, Bill, was that there are potentially other charters that reference strategic plan. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm certainly aware that there's a universe of documents that point to a strategic plan. Yes.
Okay. So given that information, I will withdraw my amendment then.
Okay. The amendment has been withdrawn. Paul?
Okay, so based on the community feedback we've had over the past few months and what people have wanted to include in the budget, I think everyone knows where this is probably going. Under the environmental area, let me see, environmental sustainability focus area, under the natural environment, so just something simple just to sort of let residents know that they've been heard, to include deer management specifically as one of those areas. Just in that first sentence, this includes enhancement and preservation of native trees and other vegetation, watershed management, and invasive species control, and deer management as well.
I'm sorry, where are you reading?
Sorry, this is page
6 of 14.
6, yeah.
Bottom.
Yeah, so that, it's just something simple so that those residents can know that they've been heard, and it doesn't cost anything, it's just a word.
So would it help, under invasive species and maybe add in animals? Because
Including
you can say deer, but then it could be something else. I mean,
True, yeah, just to.
Fox turtle.
Now, before we get too far,
Yeah, sorry.
Paul has made a motion to include invasive species that are.
Well, just deer management as the final word in that.
It's specifically deer management, okay. Do I have a second for Paul's amendment?
Jeremy has.
Jeremy.
Quick, might I suggest wildlife management?
Wildlife management?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, wildlife management. Do I have a second for that?
I second.
Sky got in there quick. Thank you, Sky. Mike?
I'm just saying voice vote.
Oh, you just want to do a quick voice vote? You're calling the question?
Yeah.
All right, to include wildlife management in the environmental section. We'll start with you, Mike.
Oh, I really meant just to ask for ayes, but yes.
Yes. All right, Karen?
Yes.
Reg?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Sky?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Colin?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. So that's a 9-0-0. Very good. So that amendment passes.
You got a hand up over there.
Mike?
I would just, as time, we've got like 3 minutes left.
Okay.
And I just wanted to make a clarifying point that, Sean, my issue with the language is not semantic in nature. It's that I believe it sets a tone that I fundamentally disagree with, right? And if I go back and look at my input in the original, this isn't coming out of nowhere, right? It's aligned with the original input I provided last summer, so it's.
Okay. All right. I got time for 2 quick comments. If anybody has any last things to say. All right, well then we'll call the question. To approve the strategic plan. All right. We'll go with Reg.
I'm sorry, could you read the?
Yes, the motion is to approve the strategic plan amended to include wildlife management in the environmental section.
Yes.
Yeah. On the main motion to approve. Yes. Thank you, Reg. Paul?
Yes.
Sky?
Yes.
Ashley?
Yes.
Colin?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
Mike?
No.
Karen?
Yes.
Okay. So that would be 7-4. Oh, and I voted yes. So 7-4, 2 against, 0 abstentions. Motion to approve the strategic plan passes. Thank you all for a robust discussion. Very good. All right. Going on to 7B. Something easy. Draft operating and capital budget. All right. Different tab. right, Susan, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. So thank you very much for your attention to the probably one of the most important initiatives that you have. I have some slides just to help you focus. None of it is new material, really, either in the draft document or previously, but just a summary that we have had multiple avenues for community participation. There's, in
Susan,
fact,
can you turn on your light?
Oh, I have that one, sorry. Sorry about that. There's been various surveys. There's a new survey open on the draft. You set strategic priorities in October, and we appreciate that. This draft that you have is a product of that guidance and the community engagement and the significant staff effort. So scheduled for you all to approve the budget at the end of February, your second meeting. So the strategic priorities that were approved, they've been incorporated into the documents to date: open space, sustainability, return on investment, including value and utilization, focusing on the annual charge payers' return of investment on investment. An affordability and accessibility priority, reducing costs to residents, including resident memberships and annual charge, and information technology and data collection and analysis. This is where we are. You're here. We've been started in August and have made great progress to date. So thank you very much for that. And again, just another vision. So this the budget process is on the web. It's been very well communicated in social media and through our email newsletters. You're at this listening state here, just January 23rd. Survey's open now. It's supposed to be open through Friday, but we'll probably extend over the weekend. There's been a paid ad push to get more feedback on that, and it's gone out in several of the newsletters and digests. So some of the key impacts, nothing new here from previous reports. You know, the minimum wage increased again in January. So all told, it's up 36% since the end of calendar year 2021. We do not anticipate any debt issuances, long-term debt issuances, and did not have to factor in any short-term line of credit use. We do have prioritized affordability and accessibility of CA's programs and services, and the total financial support for the 10 village community associations is $7.2 million. It's an increase of about 4% over the 25 estimate. And it does include some collaborative efforts in deer management with Howard County. All 23 pools opening in May, full summer of CNSL swim meets, operations as usual, a significant commitment towards the stewardship effort with demonstrated resources for open space. And that includes this year some new studies to further then build out the approach to sustainability and environmental preservation in the future. So there's a funding included for a pathway system study, and the development of a natural resources plan continues to expand upon our diversity initiatives. And as part of Sean's leadership, we're including an economic funding for an economic impact study and membership structure and pricing study. And those are big, we'll have big commitments for the organization to undertake those and to accomplish the outcomes. Annual charge stays the same, both the rate and the cap. So this 68 cents per $100 of assessed valuation, this is over 9% below the allowable maximum of 75 cents. The annual charge cap at 3.5% is 35% of the allowable maximum. And I would again point out that the county's similar cap is 5% and has been so for years. Increases in assessed valuation, you know, it's very important to understand that they're phased in equally over 3 years, and an annual increase cannot exceed 3.5% per year. It's either the lesser of the cap or the phase-in value is what the annual charge gets applied to. Now, if the property sells, that's it goes to the phase-in value. The cap does not apply to the new owner. continue to be concerned about the commercial real estate issue. What remains to be seen now with this new administration's return to work mandate will have to do with that. But without that, and even so, that's not going to directly apply to us in Howard County. So we'll see what happens with that. And we have maintained the abatement reserve. I did want to point that out to cover that. Membership, just a high level here. It's a long-term goal to encourage participation to the greatest extent possible. To that end, exploring new opportunities in pricing and membership structure. That minimum wage increase most impacts the community programs and services, and they have also experienced inflationary increases in goods and services. We're looking at potentially significant increases in utilities, for example, coming up. The minimal resident rate increases, $1 a month for play, for example, and the burden is more on non-resident memberships than residents. Staffing and personnel, it's about 47% of total expenses. Still challenged for recruiting, for customer-facing positions, still challenged somewhat for school-age services. The teaching role is something that still was just so dramatically impacted in COVID and still is an issue. And for technical roles with technical skills, IT and accounting in particular. It's really important, for CA to provide the services that the community wants at the levels they're used to, without being able to recruit, select, and retain and equip quality staff. This current draft incorporates an average merit pay increases of 4%, and CAs on for employees would get performance appraisals for those. Capital budget overview. So we continue to move back towards the pre-COVID funding of around $15 million a year. We're very close, and very proud of that. It represents a significant increase over the last few years, and it achieves replacement cycles for most of our assets that Jeremy's described as aspirational in some other organizations. But so we're making good progress, and it does also enable us to do some facility improvements. Capital budget, this is did not change from the previous work that was done in the fall. So significant, it's clear that the majority of the dollars are going to the open space improvements for the most part. Let's see. So just thank the team, appreciate your guidance. Thank you all for sticking to the schedule. It was really important for us to be able to meet the deadlines and get the document in, excellent shape at this point. And the team members who have contributed throughout the organization, both on the budget and for the services and the work that they do, is much appreciated. So tiny little print here, but you'll see it in the transmittal letter. I should have mentioned that at the outset. That transmittal letter at the beginning of the document has a lot of great information, so I hope you all refer to that letter from Sean. So we've had a lot of turnover in the organization at the board level, and also with the president CEO position. But even so, and given that with all that turnover, CA's in good financial condition. We've recovered with a lot of hard work in many ways from COVID. We continue to make progress on funding the emergency cash reserves that previous boards approved. But there's some big environmental impacts. I'm watching very closely what's happening at the state level that has to have some impact on us in Howard County. The nation's new administration is talking about cutting the size of the federal government. That's a huge concern for this county as well, for our local economy. And while we have, you see, inflation has moderated, it's no longer increasing at the rates that it was, it's not really under control, and I think that the Fed's inaction on interest rates demonstrates that. So, and then we're just starting to get feedback on our insurance renewal. We had a risk management committee previously and talked about the general liability, but, you know, these, we don't have a clear indication of the effect of some of these recent environmental issues on property, and that still remains to be seen. And it's just been difficult to also secure that coverage in many ways. So the key is that we want, we're going to continue to be committed to being innovative, to evolving in the quality of our programs, and delivering them in the most effective and efficient way possible, while continuing to add value to our annual charge customers and contributors. So I'm not really going to spend a lot of time on this. You all need time to discuss, but this page 8 in the budget is a very nice cash basis kind of most like your checkbook kind of approach to seeing where, how the annual charge and interest income is used to support CA's programs and facilities. This is sort of a picture of that. You see on the left, the annual charge and interest and other investment income, and how that's deployed throughout the organization on a net basis. And then one more. So the last one, we talked about this back in the fall, that the community programs and services income has really is so important to the organization for being able to provide the things that make Columbia special. You know, we saw that in COVID when that wasn't available, that we just could not do what the community has grown used to enjoying. And that's come back nicely. It's 106% now of the residential annual charge. It exceeds that component. And let's see, one last thing, sources and uses. This is more of a gap basis. This shows that we did assume at the very bottom lower right corner that the board will still want to continue its progress towards fully funding the emergency cash reserves, and that target is for the end of FY28. And then it does show, you know, we are in a position now of using or projecting to be using more cash than we are generating, and that's fine. We have the cash to handle that, to manage that for a period of time. And then this is typical for CA. At some point, we would then look to borrow to fund the capital projects that can't be funded through operations. Capital budget, I think I really talked about that. This is tons of little detail, but this is page 60 in the document, and you have seen that previously. And next up, so everyone please, the community members who are watching, take the survey, please. Let your input be known. And the next step will be in February. The board will talk about this again with the view to voting on it at the end of February. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Susan. All right. This part of our meeting tonight is purely discussion. We don't need to lead off with a vote or a motion or anything. Clearly, it's a little more refined than what we had last month. Sean, you were out for just a heartbeat there. If you wanted any further comment, I want to give you the opportunity to start the discussion.
No, I think Susan did a great job covering it all.
Great to hear. Mike.
Thanks for all the hard work. It looks great. There was a few sentences in the transmittal letter, and you actually had some of them on one of those slides there that just seemed very profound to me, and it's something I just had to ask about. So we do not expect to return to pre-COVID CA. We do instead see a repositioned CA supported by an organizational-wide commitment, so-and-so and so-and-so. So I was just saying, hey, we're not going to be what we were before. We're going to be something different. And that just struck me as a very profound thing. I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm just, like, in material terms, like, what does that, what are we alluding to there?
I mean, Susan can speak to it, but one item is the cash reserves, which CA did not have in place when COVID hit. So that is one, aspect of the budget where, CA is positioning itself for the future. And if something like that were to happen again, we'd be in a better position financially. I don't know, Susan, there are other things.
And I would say too, with even with processes and procedures in place, just I think the organization's become a lot more nimble. We've streamlined a lot of processes and, just gone to electronic payment of vendors, to a great extent encouraging that kind of thing. So just trying to make the organization just much more efficient as well.
Thank you, because I think some people might read that, and I wasn't sure what we meant by it, as something about CA providing services to the community in a different way, and that aspect changing, but that making us more nimble as an organization to be able to respond to all these changes, that makes perfect sense to me. Thank you for clarifying.
All right. Eric.
So I look in actually page II where we actually talk about our goals. And one of the goals is affordability, reducing costs to residents, including reducing resident membership costs and the annual charge costs. And I don't see that in this budget. I see our membership fees still going up. I see our annual charge bills still going up. And I was actually going through the archives, and I found this article, Columbia's Neighborhood Centers. It's from Columbia Today, the June-July issue of 1969. And in the issue, it basically says when Columbia was first started, a family pool membership for the entire year was just $25. Just $25, and 65% of the families joined the pools. Now it's, what, $450 plus $450 to $500 a year, and less than 30% of our households have any kind of membership fee. And I think we need to get back to basics here. We need to get back to what Columbia was founded on. We need to get back to being able to get as many people to enjoy our facilities as possible. And I feel like one of the reasons why less than 30% have any kind of membership is just too expensive. People are being priced out. Either they find a better value somewhere else, or they just can't afford it. So my point here is, yes, $25 in 1970 is not the same as $25 today. It's about $215 today. But $215 is still less than what we even charge our low-income families. Our low-income families get half off, but that's still more than what we're charging our residents back in 1970 in inflation-adjusted dollars. So I think we need to get back to basics and try to price our amenities, especially the pools, to a point where most people want to join. We get membership rates not in the upper 20s, lower 30s, but back into the 60s, back to when Columbia started. So I would like to see, say, the play membership along those lines be, instead of, what is it, $39 a month? How about $18 a month? So that would be more in line with 1970s prices, inflation adjusted.
All right, thank you, Eric. Ashley.
Yeah, I would love for lots of things to reflect 1970s prices. I think the difficulty in comparing it is that Columbia also had, or Columbia Association had requirements where other facilities couldn't operate within Columbia. We didn't have a whole bunch of apartment buildings that also have pools available to the residents. So like, why would they pay extra for the pools to Columbia Association if it's included as part of the rent that they're paying every month? I don't think it's reasonable to compare Columbia Association's 1970 practices to 2024 because there's been many changes. Even safety standards have changed since then, as well as minimum wage, right? Like, we want to have a certain number of lifeguards that are available to take care of the residents. Also, our population has skyrocketed since 1970, and we would not be able to accommodate a large portion of the public attending our pools at that high of a rate. So I think there's lots of other things that need to be considered in making that decision, not just wishing for cheaper prices like in 1970.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. Sky?
Sky?
Sky.
I kind of want to add a little bit to what Ashley said. In 1971, my rent was $157 a month, and now it's almost $2,000 a month here in Columbia. The minimum wage in the late 60s was $1.15 an hour. It's gone up probably 150%. The pools that were available to residents in 1969 or whatever were probably fewer than they are now, so that the residents, the members' choice of which pool to go to because of which amenities are at that pool. Their choice was less. There were no splash pads probably in 1969. The pools were much more basic. A lot of governmental regulations did not exist back then. So you can't just compare dollars and cents. You have to compare other values that may not have a financial cost to them, that you can, really measure number against number, but some things mean more to certain people than others.
Mike.
I think we've had this, I think we're beating a dead horse, and we've had this conversation multiple times this year, and I really respect that people disagree about it, but I don't think anyone's changing their mind at this point, and we got 9 minutes left in this conversation.
Thank you, Mike. Karen.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand that the pool was built before the houses were built. When you moved into your neighborhood, the pool was already there. So when we moved into our neighborhood, the pool was already well populated with kids and was crowded. That was the Thunder Hill pool. So a lot of these neighborhoods, that was their focus for entertainment. And now we've gotten to a place where there's a lot of kids, as I've said before, who cannot even be on swim team because their family cannot afford to buy the pool membership. And I would like to ask things like, why is our pool membership so expensive? How come the Columbia Association spends, I think it's 3 times more than Reston to maintain their pools? I think we spend over $300,000 per pool. Reston only spends about $100,000. They've modernized their pools. They've shut down a pool while they went through the whole process of modernizing it. The Thunder Hill pool, where I live, that pool hasn't been modernized. It's the same pool it was when I was younger. We've never closed down a pool to modernize it, and yet we still seem to charge people as if we've got a huge modern pool for them. So this discussion, I think it's, I don't understand. Michael's right. You guys are never going to change your minds. I get it, but I don't understand why you are so set against the residents having amenities that they can use. CA was created, if you read the charter, CA was created for the community of residents who live in Columbia, and we don't seem to care about that, so. All
right, I'm going to jump in here. I appreciate your remarks, Karen, but if you take a look, I looked it up, Sky, in 1969, what Eric's referring to, the minimum wage was $1.30. So for a $25 a year membership, you probably needed to work an hour each month in order to afford that membership. Currently, the minimum wage in Howard County in Columbia is $16 an hour. And for a income qualified membership, it's $17 a month. So you need to work about an hour a month to afford it. From a purchasing power standpoint, we're offering the same membership deal, but we were offering so much more. In 1969, there were 6 pools available in Columbia. The 3 in Wild Lake, Thunder Hill, and Swansfield. If we want to go back to, and the swim center was open. That's it. So for $25, you got 6 pools. I think if you guys want to be honest about this and go back to 6 pools in the swim center, we can certainly provide an affordable membership. To say that we're going to go with 23 pools, athletic clubs, tennis, ice rinks, and all these other amenities that came later, for a membership in terms of purchasing power is equal in value that it was in 1969. You need to have a give and take here. You can't just say that we're just going to cut prices and not be able to pay our expenses. And if you want to talk about renovating pools, I suggest you go to Swansfield and Hopewell, which have changed dramatically since they were first opened. Okay, that has happened in Columbia, and that has been a tremendous success for both facilities. So it has happened, and those pools are, by most measures, a success story. So this is a very complicated discussion. This pre-servicing, those statements were made by people when Columbia Association's entire board was run by the Howard Research and Development Corporation, not by residents, not by us, but by corporations whose main interest was to sell property. And we paid nickel and dime for 40 years for all of those pre-services. There was no free lunch there. So I just want to put that out there. Eric.
We've got 5 minutes left.
So if we're going to go back to 1970, then we're basically going back to two villages also. There was no River Hill pool because there was no River Hill back in 1970. It is a game farm. So the argument that we have more is kind of irrelevant because Columbia's gotten bigger, so everything scales. So you get, at 1970, you have 2 villages, 6 pools. Now you got 10 villages, 23 pools. I'm sure the ratios have scaled. I mean, I think we might actually even have fewer pools per resident now than we did back in 1970 because when River Hill was built, we only got 1 pool, not 2, even though we've got 2 neighborhoods. But I'm a bit confused because on one hand, we're saying, well, if we drop the prices, we don't have the capacity to serve everyone. We can't possibly have 60% of our population use the pools. And on the other hand, we've got some pools that are really below capacity, way below capacity. So which is it? Do we have capacity or do we not have capacity? And my last question is, who are we serving? Because if we're going to be an inclusive community, we need to try to include as many people as possible. And I feel like if less than 30% are included, I think that's a problem for us. I think we need to do better.
All right. Thank you, Eric. We're going to finish with Ashley.
Great. I just want to correct one misconception. Karen, you said that none of us are going to change our mind, and I have actually changed my mind. When I was on the board in 2021, I was one of the board members that advocated and requested that we have a budget scenario presented to us about what we could do for free pools. And there were 3 different scenarios that were offered, and it was not financially feasible. So data is what is going to make me change my mind. If you want to talk modernization for any of our facilities, I am completely on board with that. I think it requires encompassing all of the amenities that we're offering. And I absolutely think it's important that we are accessible for the entire community and that we're offering value to the residents. And Sean has already repeated many times that we have a consultant that will be considering that and what the best option is. So I don't think it's in the organization's best practice for board members to just haphazardly say we deserve free pools just because they know a lot of people that want to access the pools. There are plenty of people in the community that don't want to utilize the pools. They don't want to have to pay for everybody else to use the pools when they're also not using the pools. So the organization's best choice is to have a well-informed scenario available for us to vote on, as opposed to the staff having to go year after year explaining why free pools is not financially viable.
Okay, I'm going to allow Karen a brief comment, and then we're going to move on to our next topic.
Yep, I provided the analysis. I asked a CFO to come in here. He reviewed all the budgets. He showed that we could afford it. So the data is there. If you want to sit down and go through it, Ashley, I'll be glad to sit down with you and show you where we can afford it and why it is economically feasible for Columbia Citizens.
All right, we're moving on, Eric. We've got to get on to some other topics.
I move that we add 10 minutes of discussion.
Second.
Okay, so there's a move to add 10 minutes by Eric and second by Karen. Any discussion? Okay.
I'd like to amend that to 2 minutes instead of 10.
Okay, 2 minutes. Do we have a second to that? No second. Thank you. Good effort. All right. So 10 minutes. Eric moved. Karen seconded. Any other discussion? All right. Paul?
Yes.
Reg?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Mike?
No.
Eric?
Yes.
Colin?
No.
Sky?
No.
Ashley?
No.
And I will vote no. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 against. 4, 5, 0. Motion fails. All right. We will move on. Board goals update.
Yes, so this won't take the whole 30 minutes, but Susan is here to give an update to the board on the goal of analyzing the lease purchase option on the headquarters here.
So just as I can start with that, so the goal, just to remind you all, was to determine whether to exercise the lease option to purchase the CA headquarters building. That option expires April 30, 2025. It's a fixed purchase option in the CA lease. And then secondarily to that, to consider evaluating the purchase of the building regardless of that option, and to evaluate other potential options for office space for CA. So actions to date, the brokers, we have engaged, we have on-call commercial real estate brokers. They are analyze market conditions and the value, purchase options, and leasing. We've released them to discuss with the property owner representative regarding the purchase options. So it's in discussion. And we do continue to evaluate as a team other purchase options in the Columbia community. On the lease side, it's too early, too far in advance of the lease expiration, which is April of 2030, to evaluate other lease opportunities. Unless we certainly wouldn't deem it advisable to break this lease in order to lease somewhere else. So that's about a 2-year advance. So we'd start that in 2028. So next steps, we need to have a closed meeting to really discuss the transactions with you all. So that would be something that we'd be looking to schedule and have our brokers participate in. And then we'd finalize all that data for you to vote on the fixed purchase option at the March 27 board meeting, and also be presenting other possible alternatives. So there's really going to be kind of 2 decision points for you, one on the fixed purchase option, and then other potential purchase options as well.
All right.
That's just where we are at this point.
And that's it?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you for the update. Any questions or discussion on this topic? Okay. I had a quick question for you, Susan. We have an upcoming board ops meeting coming up in about a month. Would that be an opportune time to schedule a closed meeting and a meeting with the brokers, or do we need to do that before then?
I think that would be good.
Okay. Let's make sure we put it on that agenda then.
Okay.
All right. Reg.
Just a real quick question, Susan. I missed that date that the lease expires.
April 30, 2030.
Okay.
2030.
Okay, thank you.
We got a little time.
A little time.
Yeah. All right. Next up on old business would be board policies review.
John is here to speak to the board.
John.
Yes, thank you. Hopefully this will be equally as short. I think I've already briefed certain members of the board, and I'm just going to reiterate. I note that I see we at least have a tentative date. I don't know whether it's firm for a session that was designated at the last board ops committee meeting for a work session on policies that's in March. I believe the tentative date is March 13th, so that's when this would all be considered, when you decided that we're going to go over this. Just to reiterate, the policies have been developed since the beginning of the Columbia Council and Columbia Board of Directors. The record keeping is, I would say, kindly less than ideal over the years. Wasn't electronic at all. There's a lot of paper, and they're kept in various places. It's been an effort that's been going on for several years. So we think we have a good handle on it now, and such that we're probably talking about in the neighborhood of 150 to 160 policies. The goal would be to reduce that number drastically and get it to a manageable situation, develop a policy on policies, and then if we get it to this manageable number, we'll put the policies on the website, everybody can, and make them searchable and everybody can see. So the way we have broken them down by reviewing all the policies, sort of put them into buckets for organizational purposes. And the buckets are these. First bucket is what is really an actual board policy. And out of 160 or so, give or take. The way that we have in the legal department looked at it, there's probably only about 44 real board policies. So what are the other buckets? Well, second bucket is policies that are old and obsolete, and we just would recommend that those be archived, put them in the archive. As you know, you can refer to them in terms of history, but we can kind of reduce the number that way. Third bucket that we reduce the number from 160 is there are a number of resolutions and such passed that really are not what I would consider to be a board policy. And a large portion of those are really operational policies that are really staff policies. And what we would do would be say, take them out of the realm of a board policy, make them operational, so we reduce the board policies. Next group are what I would consider to be really board operating procedures related to the conduct of meetings, guidelines, how you do the organizational meeting. And I think, and there's probably 33 or so of those. And to reduce the number, what I would suggest is what we'll do is we group those into the operating manual, and then you can update that operating manual all at once rather than 33 separate policies. So we put those all in, reduce the number of policies. Then we have some more policies. We've already gone, I think, eliminated 13. We had a meeting about a year ago that were obsolete. We probably have almost 30 more that we could eliminate as being obsolete, no longer in effect. So we take that bucket and we do that. So what we want to do is archive, consolidate, and then I would suggest that we institute some kind of sunset provision or periodic review so that you can, you know, and it's up to you how you want to make it, whether it's 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, so that you can look at the policy and say, well, maybe we should change it, or maybe we'll keep it in effect, or maybe we should modify it. And that way we can keep current. And if we do all this, what I would suggest is that I will come up with some language, some board resolutions at the policy meeting in March. You could give your guidance, decide what you want to do. If we could do these things, hopefully we'll get it into a much more manageable number. We could put everything online and make it a lot easier for you all and for the public to see what we have. So that's kind of where we are.
All right. Anything from the board? Anybody, any comments, questions?
Mike has a question.
Mike?
Oh, no, just a comment. That sounds like a whole lot of work. So thank you for doing all that. And I think that's a good way forward.
All right. Anything else? All right. Thank you, everybody. All right. Board policy review is complete. We now move on to E, acceptance of the Form 990. So,
how much time do we have?
This is part of the charter, or I'm sorry, the consent agenda. We don't have a specific time, but we can probably borrow a little bit from the board policy time. So,
do we need to make a motion? I'll move that we accept the 990.
I'll second it.
okay, so that's Karen and Mike. He was fast.
She spoke first.
I'm going to go with Mike on that one. Sky got the second and the last one, so move to accept the 990. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Mike. And a special thank you to Sky. Okay, discussion. Eric.
So I've got a question. This question refers to box 15B on part 6, section B. So that's on the 990 form. It's on page 6. And the question basically asks, does the process for determining compensation for key officers, key employees and officers, does that process for determining compensation include a review and approval by independent persons? So my question is, who are the independent persons that are approving the compensation for officers and key employees?
I think Susan and I can both speak to that. We have an outside consultant that we use that evaluates the positions when they're vacant. They have a whole criteria that they use to assess the positions.
And I would add, when they're vacant, when they change, when positions around them change as well. So there's periodic reviews.
So I'll refer to the IRS instruction for this box. The IRS instruction basically says that independent persons are review and approval by a governing body or a compensation committee. So an outside consultant is not a governing body. The only governing body that I know of for CA is us, the 10 of us. And they aren't a compensation committee because the board didn't, I don't believe the board hired that consultant. I assume, I'm not sure who hired the consultant for that matter. So I'm not sure how an outside consultant qualifies as either a governing body or a compensation committee based on the IRS instruction.
All right.
That's an interpretation. Another interpretation is that every year the board approves the budget that includes compensation for all the employees.
So I'll point out that officers and key employees, their compensation is not in the budget, A, and B, just because we approve the personnel expenses for the budget has not stopped the organization from blowing past that number. So at the end of last year, the line item for personal expenses, we actually overshot that by $1.5 million. So just because the board approves that budget line item doesn't mean that this organization actually adheres to that budget line item. So again, my question is, we check yes for this box, and my concern is I don't see who the governing body or compensation committee is approving the compensation for officers and key employees.
So I did not bring my instructions, but we analyzed this over the summer when you brought this up the first time this year. And it's independent persons, comparability data, contemporaneous substantiation, and it's for it's defined terms. So it's the president, the CEO or executive director, and other officers or key employees. So there's one key employee and there are 3 other officers, and all 4 of those individuals have had their positions independently benchmarked and or included in past compensation studies as needed, as the response indicated. And they are all included in the budget. We would not be paying anyone that was not in those positions are certainly budgeted for.
Okay.
Again, that answers the second part of the question. But the first part of the question is still, who is the governing body or compensation committee? And we talk about consultants, but that's not a governing body or a compensation committee. And you're right, I'm not a lawyer. I'm just reading instructions from an IRS document. But I think it would be helpful to get some outside assistance on this. So I move to recommit this back to the audit committee and get an external independent opinion on this.
We've got a motion on the table already?
Yes, I move to recommit the IRS 990 form back to the audit committee, and so we can get a independent evaluation.
All right, here we go.
So is he making an amendment?
It's a motion to recommit. So that sends the motion back to the audit committee. That's what a motion to recommit does.
Any discussion? Okay, so recommit the Form 990 to the audit committee to evaluate compensation?
Yes, and I definitely recommend to get a independent external opinion on this, because I think, I just want to make sure that we're dotting all our i's and crossing all our t's when it comes to our tax forms.
Any other? Sky?
Yeah, it's my understanding that the board accepts the 990 as submitted. which is different from the board approving the 990.
You are correct.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? All right. Here we go. Reg. This is to recommit.
To recommit it?
Yes.
Send it back to the
Send
audit
it
committee.
back to the audit committee to get an external opinion.
No.
Okay. Karen.
Yes.
Mike.
No.
Eric.
Yes.
Colin.
No.
Ashley.
No.
Sky.
No.
Paul.
No.
And I vote no. So that is 2-7-0. Motion to recommit fails. All right, any other questions or comments on the 990? All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Colin, yes.
I would like to call the question.
Colin calls the question. All right, all right. Ashley,
What's the question?
the question is to accept the Form 990. Thank you for clarification. The motion is to accept Form 990, moved by Karen, seconded by Mike. Got it? Yep. Ashley?
Yes.
Sky?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Reg?
Yes.
Karen?
No.
Okay. Mike?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
Colin?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so that is 7-0. All right, 990 is accepted. Thank you all for your discussion. Thanks to staff for preparing it. All right, 77F. Stonehouse renovation, the $200,000 we discussed at our December meeting.
We just
Just
need
a
to make
quick refresher.
and Jeremy can give that, and the board should take a vote.
Okay. Just let Jeremy get it in, and then I'll go right to you, Eric.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so this was a request, and we don't have the original memo in the packet, but board members can refer to that. So basically, quick summary: in the execution of the Stonehouse Arts Center renovation, there were unforeseen circumstances that exceeded our contingency funding within that capital project. And so we are requesting $200,000 be allocated from the discretionary Category 3 funding to that Category 2 project to cover those increased unforeseen costs.
Okay.
And we do not anticipate it at this point causing any issues around meeting basic needs for current Category 3 expenditures for the rest of the fiscal year.
Thank you. Eric?
I'd like to move to allocate $200,000 from Category 3 to Category 2 for the Stonehouse renovations. In addition, I'd like to also move $70K from Category 3 to Category 2 to support the new kiln.
Point of order, could he make a separate motion for each of those? That's too complex.
Okay, I'm fine separating.
And maybe
Okay.
Jeremy can give an update on the kiln before you move forward with that.
All right, let me, I'm writing again here, guys, so we're moving at the speed of my right hand here. Allocating $200,000 from Cat 3 to Cat 2 for FY '25.
Stonehouse renovation.
Right.
And $70K from Cat 3 to Cat 2 for the kiln for the Art Center.
Stonehouse.
What do you mean, don't we have a reading rule?
Now, we have a two-meeting rule for policy changes. I'm fuzzy on budget items.
Anyways, Jeremy's going to tell us that the kiln's already paid for, so let's just hear that because it's in the budget.
Well,
Does somebody have to second Eric's motion? Second.
okay, Eric and Karen seconds. Okay. And we say, and $75K for the kiln?
70.
70.
All right.
So is it paid for already?
So, Jeremy, if you could enlighten us, please.
It's paid for already.
Okay.
The need is for the additional $200,000 to complete the renovation. Staff have other funding sources to take care of the kiln from Category 3 without making it a specific line item.
And that's a FY '25 money, just so that, we got a lot of budgets on the table tonight, so.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Eric, you've had a couple of turns at this already. Okay. I want to see if anybody else at the table wants to make a comment, and then I can come right back to you, okay? Karen?
Yes, I just want to know what the schedule is for the kiln.
So the kiln, there are complications associated with the kiln where it simplified the renovation to make that its own standalone sort of phase 3 project. So it's a follow-on project as soon as the Art Center is completed later this spring. The next step will be the kiln upgrade.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, nice.
Reg.
Okay, so for the Stone House, I just want to point out that there were a number of things that were that still need to be completed on the Stone House, and this is just to help make sure all those things are completed, like wiring and some carpeting, and also there was an area that, well, there's just some modifications that still need to be made that goes up to that. Yeah, they did.
All right, I'm going to go to Mike, and then we'll go back to Eric.
I support this, but I think Joel earlier was making a good point, and it's something that I've been aware of, that we're putting a bunch of money into a building that someone else wants to buy from us, and like that is a little something we need to be aware of going forward. Yeah, right?
Fair point. I'm going back to Eric, then I'll go to you, Reg. There we go.
So I just want to point out that the second half of the motion for the kiln is completely revenue neutral. Basically, instead of using Cat 3 funding, we just relabel that as Cat 2 funding. And the benefit here is then that'll show up on the reports, and then the board can better track it, so we can better see how it's progressing. So yes, I mean, it's the same money, but by moving it from Cat 3 to Cat 2, we'll get better insights into the progression of this, because I know there's been a lot of community concern about the kiln, and I think it would be good that the board has sort of better insight into how this is progressing.
All right, thank you. Reg, I was going to give you, but Susan's got her hand up. I would like to hear from Susan, and I'll come right to you.
So you would have that same visibility as a Cat 3 project as well. We would include that in the quarterly reports as well.
Okay, great. Reg.
Okay, I absolutely forgot what Mike was saying, so I kind of lost what I was going to.
Okay.
Talking about the Village Center renovation.
Yes, that was it. Thank you very much. Anyway, so yes, we are aware that that may be purchased, and by the time that the project is finally finished for the renovation of Long Reach, it's going to be 2030 something, and by that time it'll be time for renovations anyway. So we're really looking to get this done now. We have a new facility there, or almost new. We've got a lot of things that still not in a punch list that still need to be taken care of, and so it's very important. We spent the money. We want to get everything taken care of, and this is the time to do it.
All right, I'm going to jump in with one quick question. I'll get right back to you, Eric. Jeremy, what is the lead time on a kiln? Do you know?
We have, collaborating with Art Center staff, we have quotes from the applicable vendor. I am not sure what the current lead time is on that.
It's early. We're just getting to like the award part right here, so just keep that in mind, okay? Eric.
So yes, Susan's right that we do have insight into Cat 3, but the thing about Cat 2 is we'll have immediate insight right now. So Cat 3 typically doesn't show up in the financial reports until basically staff has said, okay, we're going to allocate this as Cat 3. But if we approve this as Cat 2, now we'll start seeing this on the financial reports immediately. And then we can also basically say, okay, here's the tag, the capital item that we can tell our residents is, okay, if you want to look for the status, this is the capital item. So it'll show up more immediately, and we're basically allocating the funds now instead of in some to-be-later date. So I think this is important because it's something that I know our residents are interested and they want to track. It's a revenue-neutral motion. It's just a matter of whether the board says we want to allocate it or we wait for staff to allocate in the future. But I think I'd like to see the board allocate this because there's such interest.
Thank you. Susan?
So, that's, you would see it as at the same time as you would see this Category 2 project. And I think on the phrase, I just would say, to call this revenue neutral would not be 100% accurate, right? So there are typically about 95 people who use the kiln now. The hope is that it would grow with the additional offerings that could be done, but I wouldn't call it revenue neutral.
All right. And everybody okay if we call the question at this point? Or Jeremy, did you have one last?
I don't want to complicate it.
Thank you. All right, Mike?
I'll just say that I want to thank the staff for being responsive to the residents and knowing that this is something that people cared about, making a point of putting in the budget for next year in some of the highlights that the Art Center will reopen after renovations with new class offerings, a new makerspace, and a new kilns. So like, I think, thank you for trying to communicate to that community after hearing that was something people are concerned about.
Okay, so the motion is a two-tiered motion, both allocating money from Category 3 to Category 2 in FY25. First part, $200,000 for Stonehouse renovations that need to be done. Second part, $70,000 for a kiln for the Arts Center.
Yes.
All right. We're going to vote now. Colin?
We're leaving this as a two-parter. Yeah, no, is my answer, no.
No, okay, thank you. Eric?
Yes.
Mike?
No.
Karen?
I'm sorry to do this. I'm really confused now. What are we voting? We're voting on both of the things? I thought
Yes.
the kill was already paid for.
Yeah.
Right.
This is where I'm really confused. I'm like, I thought.
We don't need that part. Yeah.
Right, like,
It's.
So we shouldn't be.
No, when we make a new vote.
Right.
Well,
okay, so
which, if it's paid for, which line item is it in the,
Jeremy said it's, and Susan, I thought said it's going to be part of a
Quarterly report.
which quarterly report is it in?
Well, so staff fully intends to install the kiln. I would suggest maximum flexibility for staff in terms of being able to execute that priority would be to just approve the 200,000 and allow us discretion in terms of how we manage whatever may remain from the Category 2 because the renovation is not yet complete. So there could be some support there and allow us to manage the Category 3 as effectively as possible to achieve that goal as well as other priorities.
okay, now I'm even more confused. You have the money, or you're going to use the $200,000. You have $200,000 in renovations remaining, and you're going to buy a kill, or you think $200,000 in renovations, and if there's money left over, you're going to use it to buy a kill. This is what I thought I heard. So now it's your turn.
Whoa.
Base request is supplemental $200,000 to address unforeseen contingency costs associated with issues with the Stonehouse Arts Center renovation. Staff fully intends to install the kiln as a third phase of the Arts Center Stonehouse renovation. We do not need to earmark Category 3 to achieve this objective because we're already planning to do it. It's a redundant sort of request. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Dan.
So I just want to add, Jeremy mentioned flexibility, and I think one of the things we're missing is that allocating $70,000 for the kiln, if we run into any unexpected problems, we would then have to come back and ask for more money. We're leaving it in Category 3, as Jeremy said, allows us the flexibility. If it's $80,000, we still have the Category 3 that we can go with. So by moving a specific amount into Category 2, you could actually end up delaying the project.
Okay.
I'll amend it to 100,000. Move from Category 3 to Category 2.
We're in the middle of a vote here. We're in the middle of a vote. So, and Karen, just politely, now it's your turn to talk. Let's be a little bit more polite, okay?
Come back to me.
Just, okay. All right. Karen, come back to you on the vote. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Reg?
Yes.
Reg says yes. Paul?
So this is just for the Stonehouse?
No.
No.
Okay. Sky?
Yes.
Ashley?
No.
All right. Reg?
You asked me already.
Oh, I'm sorry. Karen?
No.
And I vote no. So that's going to be 3-4-0.
I make a motion for the 200K for Stonehouse.
I'll second it.
Okay. Mike? Reg? 200K Stonehouse. And this is once again Category 3 going to Category 2.
Right.
Yes.
This is Category 2.
Yes. and FY '25. All right. Eric?
Yes, I'd like to discuss the motion. So the question I have is, why is this over budget by $200,000? I just want an explanation of why this is over budget by $200,000.
I think we discussed this at our December meeting.
Yeah, well, I could use a refresher.
There were some additional items, just like a punch list on your house, or just some other items that need to still be resolved.
Okay.
I mean, it's nothing that was over budget, it's additional items that needed to be taken care of.
That weren't previously planned for?
Heater and.
Okay. I was just wondering.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? Ashley?
Yes.
Sky?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Reg?
Yes.
Karen? Karen?
Oh, I thought you said Eric. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yes. Thank
I
you, Karen.
apologize.
No problem. I've been there too. Mike?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Colin?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so that's 8-0-0. All right. Very good. Motion passes. Congratulations. There we go. That's all of old business. On to new business.
Point of order?
Yes.
What happened to the audit committee charter?
That is under new business.
Okay, thanks.
If you're following at home, that's now item 8C on your agenda. Okay. Item 8A, overview of capital improvements plan. John?
Jeremy Sierra to give a presentation to the board.
Okay. I wonder if there's a way we can blow this up at all. Is there a way we can zoom in on it, do you think? So I'm just going to talk for a few minutes about our long-term capital improvements plan. So this is just sort of a quick memo that provides some information around sort of the thinking, the processes, the different types of analytical inputs that go into our 10-year capital improvements plan. So it's important to know that it's a living document. It's continuously being updated as new information is learned, as new community priorities are developed, both in terms of programming and facilities. So, there are some key sort of buckets in terms of how we've chosen to allocate and sort of organize the different types of information that feeds into our long-term CIP. So on the facility side, there's ongoing facility condition assessments that our facilities and services and construction team undertake. There's historical ADA assessments that have been completed around compliance with those regulations. We also have HVAC mechanical index, so there are more than 300 pieces of major mechanical systems that we own and operate and serve in this community that we actively track, down to serial numbers and nameplates for every single piece of equipment and what its expected mechanical life cycle is. We have a roof database that we actively track every single roof that we own and on all of our buildings that serve the community and what their lifespan is when they need to be replaced. So that feeds into this as well. Let's see, moving on. In terms of open space, there's recurring capital improvements for bridges, pathways, tot lots that are sort of an annual expense that goes forward that's in our CIP as well. There's our watershed programs, our watershed management plan, as well as recurring stormwater maintenance requirements that feed into our long-term projections for what our capital needs are going to be. And that's just a quick summary of the document there as well that I just went over in terms of Category 1, Category 2, and Category 3 funding. Typically the 1 and 2 projects are larger dollar amounts. The Category 3 funding allocations are typically more discretionary that allow staff flexibility year by year to adjust priorities as they arise based on approval within a staff committee. And as Susan mentioned, all of those Category 3 projects are tracked and reported for the board to see. And this wording is really small, but I'm guessing you can follow along. But, so this is currently what our CIP looks like for the next 10 years in terms of capital investments. So, it ranges from, in the out years, somewhere around 11 million to, I think, 19 million in 2028. 2028, yeah. And it's bucketed based on the categories for village and community associations, community operations, community programs and services in terms of, long-term forecasts of what the capital needs will be to maintain that infrastructure and those amenities. And then just to sort of, dive deep into some of those typical categories. So this is currently what the long-term CIP is for village and community associations. Again, these are larger, major investments in particular infrastructure, so there isn't a lot at the moment for the village facilities. Some highlights would be we currently have $175K for facade improvements for the Art Center and Stonehouse. Again, that's a long-term projected need around the envelope at that facility to be replaced. Neighborhood centers, they're typically funded by Category 3 funding, for the most part discretionary. The Category 3 funds can cover improvements at the community and neighborhood centers. We have $125K forecast for Claret Hall in the long term. Again, tracking with mechanical replacement cycles, putting a number in there so that we know it's an expenditure that's coming up in the future for us to be prepared for. Now, community programs and services. So this is just a quick table of what that looks like for the next 10 years. Some highlights in here would be, a Columbia gym renovation that's forecast in 2028. And currently we have 2.2 million in the budget for that for, primarily locker rooms, lower level improvements. That'll be refined as that scope of work is developed in conjunction with staff within CPS. Supreme Sports Club, we have the renovation coming up, but there's also the parking lot that needs to be replaced. So our staff are actively tracking the condition, again, of all of our amenities, elevating them when they need to be replaced based on, actual conditions or recommended replacement cycles based on industry standards. So we know we're going to have to replace the parking lot in the near future at Supreme, and so we have budget allocation for that. There's some upcoming expenditures for Fairway Hills Golf Course. In terms of a major driving range improvement that's forecast in the out years. So there's, I'm just sort of highlighting some of the key improvements in terms of our long-term capital improvement forecast. This is just sort of where Aquatic stands at the moment in terms of improvements. Running Brook is something that we're looking at for currently the pump room at Running Brook. Has some issues with it, so we know that needs to be replaced. So that's currently planned for a major renovation in fiscal year 27. So we have $500,000 in there for that. Upcoming swim center improvements to address some issues around the waiting pool deck, showers, some other improvements. Again, we have this earmarked. We know it's an expenditure that's coming that is an interest to providing value to the community, making sure we're ahead of it. We know that expenditure is coming and we're planning for it. Community operations, many of these are recurring, as I talked about earlier, in terms of bridges, pathways, play areas, improvements. The dredging is forecast in here as well. Let's see what other some good ones. So, our gas pump station at the Community Operations Center needs to be replaced. So we have a large chunk of money in that request for the future years. Let's see, Lakefront Plaza improvements. So there's going to be some significant improvements coming for the Lakefront Plaza in conjunction with our new band shell. What else? Vehicle and equipment upgrades. So this is sort of, again, ongoing funding to support these major capital aspects of our operations and how we serve the community. Yeah, I'm running through these really fast, but as sort of highlighting some key pieces here.
Just a time check, we're at 8 minutes out of 10.
Okay, so I'll wrap up there. Those are sort of the key highlights, and this is giving you a sense of, how staff, and this is a collective document that's maintained by Dan, myself, Susan, several other members of our team in terms of how we keep this document going for planning for capital investments into the future.
Any questions or comments? Okay, Eric.
Yeah, so first question is, so this is a 10-year plan. Are these inflation-adjusted dollars or today's dollars?
Today's dollars.
They're in today's dollars? And the second question I have, so I see a lot of numbers that are duplicates all the way across. So for instance, tot lots, it's 736,000 all the way across.
Yes.
So have we identified which tot lots are going to be renovated for each year? If so, I'd be interested in that list.
So it's, we're maintaining an industry standard around replacing a certain number per year. Which ones are actually replaced is sort of based on a rolling basis that leverages annual inspections and the actual conditions of the play areas themselves. So we don't really forecast exactly which ones are coming because we real time update the condition of all of our play areas based on annual inspections.
So how do we estimate 736 for tot lots if we don't know which tot lots need to be repaired?
Because it's based on an average replacement cost and an average target number based on industry standards to be replaced every year.
Okay. Ashley.
Yep. I was curious, do we have some kind of report card basically of where we are with the ADA assessments from the study in 2012? Like, do we know how far we are with that progress?
I can't capture it off the cuff. I could go back to our team and do an assessment of those and provide you with that information.
Okay, yeah, I was more just curious, like, is there like a whole list of things that we have to get to? Because I see that we have 100,000 allocated for ADA across the years, and then obviously we earmark things for larger projects. I have an interest in meeting ADA standards at an earlier date, and was considering for the next budget cycle having another ADA study completed, just because it's been over a decade.
Sure.
But if submitting a request is better,
I can go back and provide that information in terms of where we stand based on that original assessment.
Awesome. Thank you.
Paul gets the last question, and then we are currently out of time for this topic. We'll have to add time after Paul's question.
Yeah, so I think it was answered that these numbers don't include any sort of inflationary rate because, like Eric said, there are certain line items that are just the same every year, and I would expect those to incrementally go up each year. So I guess, just in my opinion, it just seems a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's just an accounting choice to keep them in present day dollars and current dollars.
Yeah, so that's it.
All right, do we wish to continue this conversation, or shall we move on? Kind of, what's the will here?
Move on.
Are we being asked to make a decision, or is it, okay?
Well, this is just new business information only.
Move on.
For the rest of the meeting here. All right, if you have any comments or questions, just get those to Jeremy offline, and we'll move on. Thank you for the report. I appreciate it. From one facility guy to another.
Yeah, I hit you really hard with a lot of stuff, so definitely review, and we're open for any questions.
I could see some work behind those numbers there, so good job. All right, capital improvement plans, making public board emails public.
Yes, so this is a request of board member Karen. And John is here to answer questions on that and kind of elaborate on it, but I don't know if Karen wants to give some, I don't want to put you on the spot, but.
I've got a song and a dance prepared, if everyone's good with that. No, it just, one of my concerns is that the board doesn't meet that often. This year, we have like half the meetings that we had last year. We don't get a chance to talk. We don't have work sessions. And so we need an opportunity to communicate with each other. And we can't, like if we're out in public and we're having a meeting, everybody's like, oh, you met in public, you didn't tell anyone. So email is kind of a really good option for us. And so I feel like some of the discussions that we have in this board meeting, we could probably condense them if we were allowed to communicate in email. The only thing is we would have to make the emails public. And I'm totally fine with that. I mean, I don't think when we're debating some of the issues, I think that's actually probably a good idea. You could cut off debate inside the email. You could say, we're debating, the kill. We're debating the kill and whether we have the money for it. And we've had a discussion and everybody's contributed, and we could say, okay, we can't discuss this anymore. We need to print the emails to include them in the packet so that everybody can see the discussion that the board was having. I think that would be a great way to allow us to actually communicate with each other, allow the public to see what we're discussing, and, maybe the meetings wouldn't be as long.
All right, Sky?
All our emails, it's my understanding, are releasable to the public. My village, about 4 years ago, got a legal opinion from DARS, who is our attorney. And as a result of that, we have something on our website that says any communication between a resident and any written emails between residents and the board can be made public. Just warning residents, that may happen. One year, there were 4 requests for information, so the staff had to go through all the emails between board members to find out who said what and give that information to the residents. So we have obviously adopted the stand that there are no email discussions because those are not open to the public, and I realize that you would, your idea would alleviate that. But the emails are open to the public now. Discussion should not be held among our 10 or 11 board members via email because those are not in the open. And the public is not invited. Yes, they may be invited after the fact, but I can email Reg and we can discuss something on the board email list, and I can add Karen and Eric because that's only 4 of us. But when we get to 6 out of the 10, that makes it a meeting, and that should be not done. That's my understanding.
I would actually, we should defer to our general counsel and get an opinion on what is and isn't discoverable as far as emails before we go any farther with that. So I think that's probably the best. And probably not in a public session. It's probably legal advice.
Yeah, so I'm going to do my best to dance around this without giving you a legal opinion, but I would ask that you look at the policy on use of email by Columbia Association Board of Directors, which is in your packet, and was passed by this board, not this board, but the board, on April 23rd of 2015. This is I think it outlines, even today, the current state of the law. What Sky just said, I think, is accurate in terms of a meeting. And this board has a policy that you shouldn't do it. I mean, that's the policy of this board. If you want to change it, you can change the policy. But I would also add that, and along the lines of what Sky said, one argument would be that when you hold these discussions among a quorum, you're not being transparent. You're not complying with the HOA Act because everything has to be in an open meeting, such as you're doing here now. And to do it post is not the same as doing it in an open meeting. Open meeting also implies, according to the HOA Act, that you have to have residents speak out. If you're doing emails among each other, there's no resident speak out. There's no agenda, which you also have to have for an open meeting. So an argument would be by doing this, you're not only violating your policy that has been around for 10 years, but you're also potentially violating the law. That's an argument. I'll just say that. I'm not making any value judgments, but that would be what certain people would say. So I would be very careful. I think the answer, one approach would be don't do it. Like, just comply with the policy. That would be the best thing you could do. And I understand the point of, look, we have a limited amount of meeting space, and, you know, people like to talk, right? Obviously. But, you know, we also have to comply with not only the policies, but the law. So we have to be consistent with that. And that's, I think you should keep that in mind as you discuss this.
All right. Thank you, John. Anybody else? Karen?
Could we get an opinion from the AG on this? I mean, I feel like.
He doesn't give advisory opinions.
I just feel like the board is handicapped in our ability to communicate with each other.
Well, you can communicate. You just can't do it in a.
We have to play telephone. I got to talk to Ashley. Ashley has to talk to Paul. Paul has to talk to Sky.
Yeah. Right. I mean, you can't discuss substantive issues. Now, that doesn't mean that you could communicate all 10 and say, hey, come to my house for a party next week. You know, I mean, you could communicate. It's just when you get into debating issues with a quorum, you know, the view is you're not complying with your policy or the law. That's the problem. Now, as Sky indicated, if it's 4 of you communicating back and forth, and maybe you want to communicate 4 at a time, these 4, and then I'll go to these 4.
Yeah, that's a walking meeting right there. That's not, that violates the spirit.
Yeah, I mean,
Bill already has 4 people at his Sunday meeting. He can't.
Usually one. Yeah.
You know, you could try to change the law. You know, they do that.
Does the law specifically talk about email? I don't think it does it?
No, it doesn't. But as indicated in the policy that was passed in April 2015, I think it reflects that the prevailing view is, and there's no Maryland controlling case, but that an exchange of email could constitute a meeting, and that's still the case today. So no, there's not a law that says that. You have to go to case law, and you could, you know, take your chances. But other courts have held that it is.
Yeah.
And
I have Mike, and then Ashley, and then Sky.
I agree. We should follow the policy as it is right now. But I also agree with Karen that, you know, we're pretty hampered, and I kind of feel like a Luddite sometimes not being able to use electronics to collaborate more effectively. And so I would like, you know, maybe not this year, but at some point, I would like us to look at if there's creative solutions to enable the board to use, you know, digital solutions to collaborate more effectively. And whether that's not necessarily, hey, we can discuss things via email and then we'll publish them, but maybe it's something as simple as like, hey, just some, you know, mechanism where a board member can really document their thoughts in full, and it is free to other board members and members of the public, something like that. Or so it's not a meeting, it's not a discussion, but it would still somewhat address Karen's concern of, hey, we've got limited speaking time in these meetings, we can't always get our full thoughts out, and that would be a way to do that. So I'm just spitballing. That's all.
Yeah. Let me get to Ashley and Sky, and I'll come back to you, Karen.
Yeah, I'm essentially echoing what he's saying. I completely agree with Karen. Like, we need a better way to be able to communicate and collaborate all together. I do understand that we have the possibility that we can do this 4 at a time, but as Bill's pointing out, it's violating the spirit. So I really could care less that this is a policy because we have the capability to change the policy. My issue is that the law part of it, obviously, like trying to figure out how we can still work with that and be open and transparent. So if there's some way in the future that we can do this electronically, please, that'd be great.
Right. Sky?
There's a difference between product and process. And by product, I mean discussions about issues that are going to come up and how I stand on certain things, and I'm trying to convince you. That's product. Process is, gee, I forgot, do we have a meeting next week or is it the following week? And process emails certainly should be able to be sent to all 10. For example, what else could be a process question? I don't know.
Okay.
I just want to
All
make
right,
that point.
I just want to jump in really quick, and then I'll get to you, Karen. Just as the board chair, every board ops meeting that we've had this year and the one that we'll have next month, I've always asked, does anybody want to do a work session? And we're going to have one in March about policies. It hasn't been as successful as I think anybody would have hoped, but I wanted to let everybody know that I've really tried this year to at least put that option on the table for folks. So I want to say that. Karen, your point.
Yeah, I was just going to respond to Mike and say, yeah, I think it's true. You don't get to have all your thoughts out. People don't get to hear what your thoughts are, and I mean this group you, and also people don't get to ask questions. You know, there are a lot of questions for understanding, and I think that sometimes there's confusion over what we're voting on sometimes, and it just feels like sometimes it feels like we're flying by the seat of our pants in here. And I would just really appreciate some deeper discussions, and email is kind of a really good way to do that. So I would like us to review this policy. I don't know if it's in the packet, John, for the work session, but I'd like us to talk about this policy and see how can we update it to, how do we find a digital solution? I mean, I guess we could put a chat board up on the website that we all use. And everybody could just see the live feed of our chat. But anyway.
All right. Yeah, it is a challenge. We have 10 voices here, and we've got to find a way to balance that. It's really, trust me, it's hard.
Mm-hmm, I know.
So, all right. Thank you for introducing the topic. We'll see what we can do to follow up on this here. All right, we are now on to 8. Shirley, approval of the audit committee charter revisions. All right, this was initially on the consent agenda. The charter revisions are in our packet. I'm not sure, Sean?
Probably at the very beginning.
We want, yeah. But
Jackie.
Jackie, would you like to maybe give us a little background, or? I know this is not what the expectation was, but.
Thank you. So this agenda item had some backup, and it was in the consent agenda because the motion, the changes that were proposed in both the Audit Committee Charter and the Office of Audits Charter were discussed, the reasons presented to the Audit Committee, and they passed a motion unanimously to present them to the board for approval. The changes do not have any, they don't involve any changes of significance whatsoever on how the Office of Audit or the Audit Committee operate. This is more of clarification and some responsibilities and authority that the Institute of Internal Auditors in their revised professional standards recommend that be emphasized in those charters. So it's more of those two things, and really nothing of significance will change as far as how the two functions provide service and operate.
Thank you for the background.
Sure.
Mike.
I make a motion to approve the revisions.
Okay, Mike makes the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, I got first, I got loud. Who wants to own it?
Go for it.
Paul seconds. All right, thank you.
Can I add one more point of clarification about it?
Yes.
Before these proposed changes went to the Audit Committee, I did obtain some professional advice from a public accounting firm that is a subject matter expert in the revised standards and making sure that there's alignment and appropriateness of those changes. And they were also, the changes were supported by them. I also had general counsel review the proposed changes, and then, as I said, it went to the Audit Committee. So
thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Discussion. Eric.
So I don't necessarily have anything against the proposed changes, but one comment I do have is the composition of the committee. So we have 3 board members, and 2 committee members appointed by the board of directors shall be community members. They initially serve 3-year terms, beginning alternating years, and they just sort of continue. They get continued annually thereafter. So basically during the organizational meeting, they're listed on the audit committee, and they basically get approved sort of de facto by default. So my concern is we've got the situation where we've got 2 members of the audit committee. They're initially appointed, and then they just sort of, the annual term just sort of rolls over year after year after year. And my concern here is that we almost create a situation where we got people that have positions just indefinitely. And I think for a committee as important as this, I think it's important to have some healthy turnover, get some new ideas on board. So I would like to have the board at least consider some term limits for the community members, maybe 6 consecutive years, 8 consecutive years, but something so that we have some new ideas and we get a healthy rotation.
All right, thank you. Jackie.
So I strongly disagree with that suggestion. I'd like to note that the charter also says that those community members serve at the pleasure of the board and may be removed from the committee's membership by the board. In the meantime, if the board is a high-functioning board, if the committee is high-functioning and is providing really good oversight on behalf of the board in these areas of internal controls, of financial reporting, of monitoring CA's ethics program, then the continuity of that expertise is actually embraced and supported by best practices by the Institute of Internal Auditors and certainly by the other areas of oversight, for example, that public accounting firm that I got feedback from.
So just as a point of clarification, does the makeup of the audit committee, is that part of the revisions that are in front of us right now?
No.
Okay, the motion is to approve the revisions. Do we have any other discussion about the revisions? Okay.
I call a question.
Call a question. All right. Reg, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes. Karen?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Eric?
Abstain.
Okay. Colin?
Can you come back to me? Sorry.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Ashley?
Yes.
Sky?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Colin?
Yes. Sorry.
Yes. I vote yes. So that's 7-1-0. Or 7-0-1. My apologies. So we have 7-4-0 against, 1 abstention.
There are 9.
I'm sorry, 8. It's getting late, folks. My apologies. And my pen's running out. 8. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the math. I appreciate it. All right. Audit Committee 8 Delta April stakeholders dinner invitations. We can try and hold this to 10 minutes. What's going on with the?
So this is me being a stick in the mud. The memo said that you wanted board's input on
So, and this is just, it was an option for the board to consider, so it's not, high level, but the stakeholder events seem to be pretty successful. There's a lot of getting together with the other village board members. We didn't know if it would be helpful too, just to kind of spur I think the last stakeholder reception was great. There was a lot of intermingling, but the first one I attended, it was more kind of siloed by village. So we thought it might be helpful to have a topic of discussion. Could be very light, nothing very heavy, but just something so that afterwards at the social hour, there's a topic to talk about with everybody. So we didn't know how the board felt about that. We thought it might be good to help enhance like kind of more of a social atmosphere. But if the board feels it's social enough as it is at these stakeholder events, that's fine too. So just wanted to give that option.
Okay.
I'm socially awkward, so I think it's a good idea.
Would you like a vote on this?
I mean, it can just be a consensus. Like, okay. If the board just felt like, I mean, it's something certainly we can try. If it's not, right. Productive, then we would.
I think it's a.
Okay.
it certainly will make the night a little more.
I'll be honest, like, my concern wasn't with the change. It was when you said, hey, you wanted input on like the topic as well, and just that topic didn't appeal to me. But since then, I wouldn't have objected to this if you had said something that you said later in the meeting that mental well-being is like a new focus for CA. So, you know, color me skeptical that I'm going to care about it, but I'm not care about it, but then I'm going to be super intrigued. But I want to hear now.
Good. Okay.
Okay, we are now rounding the corner here. President's report? Questions?
Yes.
Any questions on the president's report? Karen?
Wow, lots of lifeguards? Well, okay. Do you guys expect to get like way more applications this year since you're on a trend? It seems like the trend is much faster.
Dan can certainly speak to that.
We are cautiously optimistic. We are, as the note said, we are trending ahead of where we have been the last few years. We are very pleased with the number of returning guards, which makes life a lot easier and even means you can get away with a little fewer. But yes, we are confident. We do have a couple trouble spots that we have every year. Mike? Dasher Green.
My kids aren't old enough yet, so.
Trouble spot?
Yes, that's Dasher Green and Hopewell are always a challenge. Bryant Woods is usually a challenge, but it's not. And Jeffers Hill is a challenge, but we're confident the way things are going.
What are we doing?
Just not getting enough kids.
Oh.
So talk to your villages and make sure we get the word out. We're doing it. But we are in a better place than we've been the last couple of years.
Can I ask a follow-up? I know everybody wants to go home, but so you're still sourcing the lifeguards from the neighborhoods and villages that they live in? Are you trying to find out if any of the lifeguards are willing to like?
We do.
Bike?
Oh, no,
over?
we do. Their first preference is, because a lot of them walk, is where they're at, and then we start moving people around.
Okay.
No, we just don't say you're not going. That's how people get to. That's how those pools get open.
Right.
But it is much easier if the kids live close and we're not juggling them around. But no, that's what happens.
Yeah, Bill will tell you when we were lifeguards, we did not get our home pools once.
No.
I had to go to McGill's Common, and I lived in Thunder Hill.
I had to rent boats on Lake Kinwaukwani.
We would have 500 parents yelling at us because they'd have to drive them around. So
I think Karen and I passed each other in the past. That's probably what's happened.
Biking
So,
down 29, that
just
was
a
my
Reg?
adventure.
Okay, so I have to ask this question because I always ask it. How successful are we at getting multilingual?
Oh, that's a good one. yes.
we're not there yet because we're just taking applications now. So we won't know until we go through the hiring is going to start actually happening and starting in February. We'll start that process and we'll know better then. Right now, we're just.
Can we make a push?
We always do.
Okay.
Like Reg, we've got over 400, almost 500 applications already. And we're opening our arms to anybody and everybody that wants to get near the water.
Signs are up.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, for the pools that don't have as many lifeguards interested, does CA ever offer incentives to go to?
We offer a lot of incentives.
Okay, yeah.
I think the answer is yes.
Kids to work.
Sky?
Last year you contracted out 3 pools. Are you going to do that again?
We are not going to.
Okay. All right.
Just out of curiosity, why?
I would prefer not to have a vendor conversation in a public meeting.
Okay.
Just last on the topic, we had that COVID year when we were shut down and had the subsequent hiring gap. Are we starting to see that make its way through, or?
Yeah, we largely, and the gap, what Bill's referring to is we have a lot of returning staff. And that's where your MODs come from, your managers on duty, your assistant managers, your pool managers. The year we were closed, we lost a whole generation. And so it took us a couple years. We had basically almost had to start over again. So we've made it through the cycle. Last year was a very strong year. And Matt was actually telling me the other day when we were meeting about how pleasantly surprised he was at the strength of the leadership team coming back.
Good. All good stuff. Sky?
This is the president's report. This is a monthly that we get?
Yes.
Okay, and it's the first meeting of the month, or?
Generally, the majority of the time it's one meeting, so yes, once a month.
I just, at first I got mixed up because it's January and I didn't know if it was an annual or, yeah. Okay, good.
Okay. So, any other questions on the report? Very good. State and local legislation update. Oh, hands are going up quick now. Ashley.
Yes, I was just curious if there was any update on Senate Bill 71 since the committee hearing was the 21st.
Yes, it is going to be withdrawn.
Thank
because the General Assembly does not want to do task forces this year. So there is the word we got actually today, it would be withdrawn. Also, just an update on the Terry Hill bill. The county delegation voted to approve that, so it's going to move forward. That bill is going to move forward.
Which one is that, John? Is that which one is the noise?
That's the landlords notifying about
Okay.
CA.
Yeah.
Were there any changes to that bill?
No, it's the same bill that went last year. Well, there were changes from her original form, but the bill that eventually was the final form is in the same form this year.
Okay.
Are we going to support that? I think we should.
Well, that's up to you. I mean, it's, I mean, we can have another discussion. It's certainly up to you. The downside is it really has no effect on us. CA doesn't have to do anything. I guess the question for you is, do you want to go in a position of advocating that somebody else do your work? Because that's essentially you're making landlords provide CA documents. Do you want to get in? I mean, that's a philosophical question. The other thing I might say is it might have a little effect of, because of the way it's written and talks about the tenant's share of the annual fee, we could have a lot of calls into our office saying, what's our share, what is this and what's our share, which we have nothing to do with. I mean, that's whatever the landlord says. CA bills the landlord, and if they decide, well, I've got 100 tenants and their share is $12 each, CA has nothing to do with that. So we could get a lot of calls saying, how come it's this and I don't understand that, and we really have no idea. So as a practical matter, there's that. So, I mean, that's the issue. In terms of whether it adversely affects us, I mean, I could live with the bill, so that's fine.
All right, Mike.
Wasn't there a part of that bill, and maybe this is one of the things that got changed, that was something about, tax deductions for what you're paying? Is that still in there?
No.
Okay.
No, that was
That got taken out last year.
I mean, that would, I could tell you that, especially this year, that's not going to pass.
Yeah.
But no, that was taken out last year. And last year, I don't think the bill never even made it out of committee. So this is a very different session this year. There's a lot going on. So, I mean, practically, what's the future? I don't know. It didn't pass last year. I don't know. The taxes and revenue, that's the main thing in this session.
Okay. Anything else? Very good. All right. Last thing, chair's report. Just quick couple housekeeping.
Whoa. IAT.
Oh, IAT. I'm sorry. Mike.
Oh, we're gonna have the same thing. Where's that colonnade?
Where's the what now?
The colonnade going? Where is that?
Oh, isn't that along the fence line that they want to build that?
Oh.
Jeremy.
I believe it's along the fence line with Meriwether, where the bathrooms are.
Kind of that flat area
Okay.
on the Meriwether side.
Is that what they told you? Because I don't remember, when we took the tour, I don't remember them saying it was going to be there. I may have misunderstood.
Can we get somebody from Inner Harbor to come in and explain that to us?
Yeah, they have a capital plan.
Colin has his hand up. I don't know.
Colin.
Sorry. This is really a question for Sean, I guess. I think we keep talking about this, so can we have Nina come to a board meeting and give us a presentation? And I don't know what that looks like, whether we need to get that through the BOC and schedule that time with her. I think it would just be really helpful.
Can do that.
All right. Anything else on the Ann Arbor? Very good. Chairs, Paul.
I do have a question. So it says that this project is funded by Howard County and the state of Maryland. Has that funding been secured?
I'm sorry, so they,
It says the Colonnade project is funded by Howard County and the state of Maryland. Has that funding been secured with them at this point?
I mean, Nina would have to come in and speak to that.
I see. Yeah, so never mind. It'll be a question for later.
All right.
sorry.
Good question. Good question. Anything else? All right. Chair's remarks. Just quick housekeeping here. Let's see, our next meeting is on the 13th, so it's quick turnaround here. Make sure everybody's ready. All right, that's a big heads up. We do have our annual review of the president's performance coming up. So if you guys could email me individually, not to the whole board, but individually, so I can or I'll put together a doodle poll for possible dates. We have 2 meetings here, then we have a meeting in March. We have a work session in March. We have audit committee meetings coming up, board ops meetings coming up. The schedule is a little bit more crowded than we have seen in the last couple of months. So I'll put together a doodle poll and send it around, okay? Just start keeping that in mind. It's almost that time of year, and we need to have time to consider how Sean has done in his first year, and then be able to present that and have a discussion with Sean. So keep that in mind. It's really 2 meetings, okay? Everybody cool with that? All right. That's all I got. Anybody have any objection to adjourning? And we are adjourned, 10:08.
9 goes, please.
All right. Reg, thanks for sticking it out. I know you're a little.
Yeah.
All right.